Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. I'd like to welcome everybody this morning. We'll begin the meeting by asking Ms. Sandy Gilliard, former educator and school board member, to come and deliver our invocation, and then Commissioner Turner will lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
As Commissioner Pickens has already said, good morning to each of you. I too greet each of you this morning. Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we come this day calling upon your name because we know, God, that there's power in the name of Jesus. And not only that, we thank you for watching over us while we slumbered and slept last night. And then, God, for you waking us up early this morning, clothed in our right minds, the activity of our limbs, and for that we say thank you, for we take nothing for granted. Now, God, we ask your divine guidance in this meeting. God, we pray that you will bless each of our commissioners, those appointed officials, God, not just here, but all over the country, God, from our president to our governors. God, we just pray for your spiritual guidance, that we will continue, God, to keep in the forefront that we are servants of the people. God, help us to do everything decent and in order. And God, we'll be careful to give you praise, honor, and glory. For we realize, God, that we live in a great country where we can worship and serve you as we please. God, where we're not bound by the government, but we are the government. It is for the people and by the people. And now, God, have your way in this meeting for those that are being recognized, God, for their great contributions to this great county. God, we just thank you for that. And for all, God, and for every constituent, for every citizen of this great county, God, continue to lead us forth. And we'll be ever so careful to give you praise, honor, and glory in Christ's name. And everyone said, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Sandra, and also thank you, Commissioner Turner. Before we move into the approval of the minutes, I am going to move the agenda around a little bit. We're going to go through the approval of minutes, and we'll have our Port Authority meeting. And then I'm going to go down to presentations and go through the presentations and then come back up to the public hearings. One reason I'm waiting for more people with the River Park group, that's on the 9:30 public hearing, because we have to make an announcement about that. So, Commissioners, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Okay, got a proper motion by Commissioner Turner, proper second by Commissioner Harvey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Okay, we'll recess the regular Board of County Commission meeting, and I'll convene the Port Authority meeting. And we'll start with item A, any public comment on Port Authority items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to item B, an action item, adoption of the budget resolution for rail repairs, resolution 2022-027.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think we have discussed this multiple times on multiple occasions, and everybody knows what's going on. This is just to actually switch the money over to the proper account. So I move approval.
Second.
Okay, got a proper motion to move this forward by Commissioner Turner and a proper second by Commissioner Harvey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. 3-2 with Commissioner Rawls and Adams Act dissenting. Okay, adoption of the resolution authorizing sale of the business park property. Administrator Suggs?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This was the property that came to the board October 12th of 2021. It's out there at the Putnam County Business Park. We're selling it to Mr. John Tipton. The county attorney, Mr. Rich Commando, has been working through the process for the purchase-sale agreement. It was for $40,000 an acre, and it comes to $629,000, or $629,600. And just like to go ahead and get board's approval to execute this sale of this property today.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a proper motion to move item C forward by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Adamsack. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, any general discussion on Port Authority items? Okay, any comments from staff?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
There is one, Mr. Chairman. Just as a heads up, as you know, we're still going through the process for the purchase of the property across from the barge port. I have had a email conversation with the folks representing Georgia Pacific. They're out of the country, and we're waiting to get the purchase-sale agreement. Once that comes in, I'll forward it to Mr. Commando, and he can work through the process of making sure we can get that back to you guys as quickly as possible.
But you don't see any, if I may, Mr. Chairman, you don't see any issues at this time? It's gonna fly, you think?
Yes, sir. I've been in contact with the real estate division, Georgia Pacific. They've asked us to work through the leasing agent. He just happens to be out of the country. He should be back this week, and hopefully we'll get us a purchase-sale agreement.
Good deal, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll end the Port Authority meeting, and I'll reconvene the Board of County Commissioner meeting. As I said, we'll move down to presentations, and first we have proclamation. Gretchen Smith from the St. Johns River Water Management District come forward, and I'll go to the podium, and I've asked Commissioner Rawls to read this proclamation.
This is a proclamation number 2022-029, Water Conservation Month. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, and whereas the State of Florida Water Management District and Putnam County Board of County Commissioners are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas Putnam County in the State of Florida has designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, Florida's Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. And whereas Putnam County Board of County Commissioners has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water, and whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. Now therefore be it resolved that by virtue of the authority vested in me as chairman of the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month. Putnam County, Florida is calling upon each citizen and business to help protect its precious resources by practicing water-saving measures and become more aware of the need to save water. Done, ordered, and adopted this 22nd day of March, 2022. Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Second.
Got a proper motion by Commissioner Rawls, a proper second by Commissioner Harvey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, pose same sign. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners. My name is Gretchen Smith, and I am a new employee with St. Johns River Water Management. I'm their communications manager. I come to Putnam County from Flagler County, where I've lived for quite some time, most recently at the Flagler County Health Department, where I was Public Information Officer, and before that, the Flagler County Chamber of Commerce. So I've been to a lot of county commission meetings in my life, and I'm thrilled to be here today to accept this proclamation on behalf of St. Johns River Water Management, and appreciate the partnership.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could say one thing real quick. While you're here, I'll take this opportunity. So back in the mid-2010, 11, 12, the Water Management District started a Water Star compliance program. It never really took off in Putnam County. We've got a lot of growth that we're experiencing now. I wonder if now wouldn't be a good time to potentially start educating the local governments about the program and maybe offering incentives to induce some water savings.
I think that would be fabulous. Let me circle back with you on that,
Okay,
and we'll see what we can do.
I'm easy to get hold of.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. She wants to get a photo.
Can I get a quick photo?
I need to sign this.
Okay, sure. Make this official.
You were really here?
I was really here, yes.
But we can Photoshop you. All right. We all done?
Thank you.
You were here.
Thanks. Will do. Thanks again for your help.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rawls. Okay, we'll move down to item B, and I'll ask our Fire Chief, Chad Hutchins, and Kevin Harris to come up for its Human Resources Employee Recognition of the month for February.
Morning, Commissioners. Lieutenant Tibbs has been with us since July of 2017. While here, she has completed Fire School, Fire Officer 1, and the Fire Officer 2 series. Katie is also an EMS instructor with St. John's State College. She has taken an active role in training and assigned to the hiring of new employees. Kaylee goes above and beyond with everything she has a part in. She is dedicated to the progression of this department, and her hard work has shown that. Kaylee is a can-do employee, and she tackles everything head-on at 110%. I've enjoyed watching her grow into the officer she is today, and I look forward to seeing her, what her future brings. Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words? Speak.
I wasn't ready for this part. So I've been with the department for just under 5 years. Been a part of a lot of changes, and I mean, this is home to me. It's a family. There's no place in the world I'd rather be. So it's very exciting watching the changes that we've had over the past couple of years, and I can't wait to see what the future entails.
Well, thank you. Thank you what all EMS, firefighters, law enforcement people do for us daily. We really appreciate that. Do you have family here? Because we're going to get a photo if they want to come up. We'll just have y'all line up in the front, and the commissioners will be in the back. Is that okay?
Good. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, for our next presentation, I'll ask Ms. Wendy Musling, and then if Sharon Treen wants to come up, they're going to recognize an award to Ben and Luann Williams for the 2021 Florida Outstanding Tree Farmer of the Year Award and the Florida Tree Program.
Whenever you're ready, just press
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here again, and I hope every time you see my face, you're thinking of all the good stuff that's happening in Putnam County agriculture, because that's what we're talking about today. Some really, really amazing award. This is a statewide award. It's the Florida Tree Farmer of the Year across the whole state of Florida, and our tree farmers this year are from Putnam County, Ben and Luann Williams. I want to give you a brief introduction, and I'm going to show you a video because I think that it will speak for itself.
Hi, I'm Tony Grossman, and I'm the president of the Florida Tree Farm Program. Managing a forest involves much more than planting and growing trees. In addition to thousands of products from lumber to food flavorings, we rely on our forests to produce wildlife, fresh air, recreation opportunities, and clean, abundant water. Ben and Luann Williams' Wetland Preserve has become an outstanding example of sustainable management of these forest resources. Like other tree farmers, Ben and Luann have a deep-rooted connection to their land that drives them to be good stewards. The Florida Tree Farm Program is proud to be a partner in their stewardship. The Florida Tree Farm Program is honored to recognize Ben and Luann Williams of Wetland Preserve as the 2021 John Gould Outstanding Tree Farm of the Year. Congratulations, Ben and Luann.
Thank you, Tony. We are extremely honored and grateful to receive this award. We feel like we are simply the stewards of this land while we are here, and the award sort of gives us the acknowledgement that the work we're doing is good, and it verifies that everything we've done thus far has been worth the effort.
In 2008, after being in the seafood business for 30 years, and we'd commercial fished, we'd actually owned a shrimp boat for a while, and we'd hunted all our lives, and we'd always wanted land. And we bought the first 3,200 acres at that point. I wish I could tell you we had a really good plan, other than we had done the back of the envelope math. The plan changed as we found out how many more things there were that we could do, how many more options that there were. Having come from the commercial fishing industry, we knew the tie-in between preserving upland habitat and the value of upland habitat being in good condition to water quality, and that flows downhill, and that is economic value to the state of Florida.
Initially had visions of planting a lot more longleaf than we were actually able to plant. We had to come to terms with the fact that all of our land wasn't the right soil.
Leonard Wood, who was our forester, he showed us how to do a better job on some of the areas that we have subsequently planted. But with Leonard's help, paying attention to the county forester and seeing some of the outreach events we went to, we saw ways that we could do it, and it's worked.
The streams and the creeks that ultimately feed into Rice Creek and the St. John's serve a purpose that if this land eventually were developed, or some parts of it that we've put in the conservation easement were allowed to be harvested, it would be a detriment to the protection that it provides for the water.
When the county forester mentioned the American Tree Farm System and started to explain it to us and suggested that we look into it, as soon as we looked into it, we saw that it hit all of these values that we'd already found were important, and we just had to step up to the standards. And it protected the wildlife, it's protected the water, protected the economic value of the resource. I mean, it was all there. If we can make an income, positively affect wildlife, positively affect native plants and pollinators and all those other things, we try to fold all that in, and that's caused us to focus on long rotation stand management. We use those stands when we do outreach, and the outreach portion of it is very important to us, because We need prescribed burning here in the state of Florida, and it gives us an opportunity to explain how important that is to the resource. To get them to understand that, you have to get them out here, to ride them around and talk about forestry and talk about prescribed burning. And invariably, there's a section in there about conservation easements, and we get to talk about best management practices for forestry.
We've put a lot of work into it, and we love this land, and we would like to be sure when we're not here any longer that in some way it stays as we have left it for future generations.
Ben and Luann, come on up. So I think, as you can see, that they are very well deserving of this award, and we're very thankful that they're here today. And just from extension and from the county perspective, they are fantastic with outreach. You know, they are willing. We just had the tour March 11th in the horrendous rainfall we had on Friday. we grinned and bared it, and we did it, and we had several folks out there, and just education, and we continue to want to educate our community members about how to be good stewards of the land. They've already received the Florida Land Steward Award back in 19, I think, and so we just want to continue to celebrate their accomplishments. So, on behalf of the county, on behalf of IFAS, on behalf of the American Tree Farmer of the Year, American Tree Farm Association, we present this award to you.
All right, this is going to take 30 minutes. No, we hit on the economics of it, and 40 some odd years ago, we were commercial crabbing out there on that river, and if you'd have told us somehow we were going to get from that ratty little 16-foot crab boat, dirty and smelly, and to here, there is no way that was going to happen. So as the lady said when she gave the invocation, this is a great country, and we'll testify to that. And the other thing is that water quality component, the Water Management District lady spoke of it. You know, it's economic value to this county and this state, and the way forestry and the way that we manage our land ties into that water, that's a really big deal. And we got to figure out how to have our cake and eat it too. We can do it if we have good leadership and good, thoughtful forward planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Let's get a picture if we can.
Yeah. Gotta have that picture. Gotta have the picture.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Really do love what we do.
I bet you are glad we got it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Wendy.
I'm missing a hearing.
They didn't buy it till
All right. Okay, our next presentation, I'll ask Dr. Nancy Russo with SMA Healthcare to come forward and give us an update on the Substance Abuse Reinvestment Grant.
Good morning. So just briefly, on the spreadsheet that I gave, I just wanted to let everybody know that the grant didn't start until February 1st due to some issues on the DCFN. So in the month of January, we were not providing any transports. So the grant really goes from February 11th through December 31st. We had 218 transports for the year. And you probably don't have the colored highlighted, but in 2021, all of the highlighted areas towards the bottom are new for this grant. These are the things that we have implemented for this 3-year grant period from what we were doing in the previous grant. And probably the most important thing is now we're able to provide transportation for youth to Baker Act receiving facilities. So we decided to start looking at, when law enforcement has to do the transports versus us, what are the reasons? And there were 92 individuals that law enforcement had to transport this year. 58 were adults and 34 were kids. And some of the reasons that we found were, in the beginning, we didn't have the security cameras in the car, and we had to wait for those to be installed in order to be able to transport the kids, because that was a requirement from our liability insurance. 20 were transported due to being outside the hours of our operation. We operate from 8 a.m. to midnight every day. And 13 were due to aggression or noncompliance. We can't take somebody who's actively aggressive. Law enforcement needs to transport those. Same with medical clearance. If they require medical clearance, that's another liability for us, so that law enforcement will transport them to the emergency department. 15, there weren't any documented reasons why we weren't called, so I work very closely with Major Rose when that happens to find out where the disconnect was. And then 3 were due to no staff availability. That's probably been our most difficult part this year, is being understaffed. The workforce is just not there for us. We're not getting many applicants, and then those applicants that we are getting don't pass background screening. So we're having a lot of difficulty filling the slots, and we have really been operating a 9-person team with 1 person and a lot of people doing overtime from other departments, just to make sure that we could at least cover the shift as best we can. And then we also started looking at quarterly patterns. So we have on the spreadsheet, it is all the years we've been in operation for the CTTU. And in 2020, we definitely saw a decline in the transports, most likely due to COVID-19. In Q2 of this year, we showed an increase in adult Baker Acts more than any other year. Not really sure why that is. These are things that we can continue to look at over time. And then in Q3 and 4, we showed an increase close to those from 2018 and 2019 and over those we saw in 2020, and that's possibly due to the restrictions being lifted at that time. So those were the transportation highlights. As far as the grant overall, we were able to meet all of our monthly performance measures and deliverables required by the grant. We met the training needs required, which were 3 CIT classes and 5 mental health first aid classes. And over the year, we were able to divert 18 individuals from needing to be placed under a Baker Act. So we were able to provide that service right then when it was needed to divert the crisis and require them to be placed under a Baker Act. And then also, we calculate the savings to the county, and we were able to save the Sheriff's Department $56,000 and 537 personnel hours, and that allows them to stay on the road. So that's pretty much the highlights of the grant. Are there any questions?
Okay, any questions?
Just a comment, I
Ross?
want to thank you for everything you do. I don't know if the commission realized, but I do realize that you go way above and beyond what the county funds you to do. You participate in a lot of things that you don't have to, and I just want to say thank you from the citizens of Putnam County for all that you do for us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I met Nancy in the foyer and asked how long the presentation was going to be, and she said not very long. And I said, well, I went through all that information, and that's a lot just to get that report done. So we appreciate everything you do, and I know it's on limited funds, but we thank you so much.
You want to remind us what's going on the 31st real quick?
No? There is a summit at the World Golf Village, and it's around the opioid crisis, and it's a 7-county meeting that there's going to be presentations from what causes the brain to malfunction in addiction, stigma reduction, and several other presentations. So everybody's welcome. It's a free event, and lunch is provided.
And it's March 31st?
March
What time?
31st. 9 to 4.
9 to 4, okay. Okay, Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Okay, next presentation, Ms. Linda Myers, Putnam County Tax Collector, and Ms. Brenda Bridges, Deputy Tax Collector, 2021 Property Tax Collection Report. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, good morning. Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Administration, Clerk Reynolds, Ms. Frank, this great Putnam County team that's with us. Good to see some faces I haven't seen in a while, and of course, I'm glad to have the citizens and viewing audience because this is some great information that we're going to be sharing with you. We know you're going to have questions from citizens, and so providing you the data ahead of time, I'm sure is helpful to you. Sometimes you reach out to us, and I thought better for us to do this collectively. So we're going to start with the folks who know the most, and we're going to share, first of all, Rose Wilkinson will share some of the information that is in your packet.
Good morning.
Good morning. Morning.
I'm Rose, and I'm the Tax Administration Manager for the Tax Collector's Office. And this morning, we're going to give you a recap on the percentage of real property taxes collected so far this year in comparison to last year. For the collection count, we're at 67.7% compared to 2020 at 69.54% of the collection at the same time as last year. Keep in mind that for 2021, we do have 135 more parcels to collect than for the 2020 year. And for the collection amount of money, we're at 86.07% for 2021 compared to last year at the same time, 85.88% of the taxes were collected. And if you had a chance to look at your handout we give you, if you have any questions on that, we'll be glad to help answer some of them.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner, at this time? Okay. Not at this time.
Okay, and up next is going to be Brenda Bridges, and she's going to be talking on an exciting topic.
I always get to share the good news, which is a great thing.
That's right.
So 2 amazing opportunities is the tax bill reminder that goes out. And with that, Linda will be addressing that. But part of that is a reminder to make you and the viewing public aware of the ability for them to pay their property taxes in 4 installment payments. So we have an application in your packet. Anybody in the audience that would like an application, Linda and Rose will be handing those out. It's a very simple process. The most important thing to understand is that if you are interested in applying to be on that installment plan, the application must be received by our office by April 30th. And then we will send out an invoice for those 4 installment payments. You get the same discount as if you had paid your taxes in November. So it's a great deal for everybody to be able to make that in those payments. Like I said, we send out an invoice. The very important thing to remember, the first payment is the June payment. And so because that's coming out, it's based on the previous year's taxes. And so you must make that payment in order to remain on the installment plan. And then the other key item is you must owe at least $100 in taxes to be eligible to be on that installment plan. So the information is in that application in your packet. You can apply online by going to putnamtax.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see a little icon. It's a house, and it says installment plan. You can click there and fill out the application online. For anybody that has a paper application, they can mail it in or drop it at any of our 3 locations. And then the other exciting thing that I get to share with you is an opportunity.
I'm actually going to talk about the reminder and let you
Okay.
follow up with
Okay.
that great opportunity,
Okay.
if you don't mind. We obviously didn't rehearse this well enough, but that's okay. We're busy doing work. So one of the things we want to share with you, first of all, when I talk about installment, I call it sliced bread. It's too fabulous. And I'm sorry, I was passing out. Did you talk about the actual number of them?
I did not yet.
So I believe we have about 3,800 parcels participating. We have 98,000 parcels and counting. You heard an extra 135 this year. We have not touched, so please share that information. There are folks who really could benefit from this because their cash flow is not great. And this way they get 4 payments, as she said, and they get their discounts. But even on top of that, even if you can afford it, it's still a great system. People say, I won't remember. We actually send 4 bills. That is by law, by the way. This is I wish I could say this is a Linda Myers, Brenda Bridges program. It's not. It's a Florida statute program, and it is a fabulous program, and we have really underrepresented in the installment plans, so we always push this. So please share that information, and of course, going digitally now, those younger folks, they don't want to fill out a handwritten application. So as of last year, it's now on the web. Pull it down, fill it out, submit it on the web, and hopefully that'll drive more. But what I want to talk to you about, because I believe you're going to, and I get to do the dirty work, and I want to share this with you, because you're going to get some phone calls. So by statute, and you're going to get phone calls that say, why are they sending me this? Isn't it costing money? Yes, it is. But by statute, we must send this reminder notice. The reminder notice is designed to, gosh, I totally forgot to pay my taxes. Well, that can result long-term in some consequences that are not positive for that property owner. So because of that, the statute declares that our office will make sure people who haven't paid are reminded their taxes are due. That's a protection. It's one of those built-in protections for the property owner. So with that, in your packet, you've got a copy of what is a reminder notice. So here's what I want to share with you. This actually goes out today. We like it. We delay it as long as we can to catch as few people as we can who have already paid, and they're going to get this anyways. So we delay it so that when they receive it, they have about 5 days to come in and pay it. We've never found the magic day, but we're always looking for it. So we will take input from anyone who has advice on that. But it mails today. Putnam County will be getting it tomorrow and the next day. And of course, they have all the way to the 31st to pay it. So they'll have a week, 5 working days. You'll notice in the middle, it talks about the delinquent taxes too. That's part of the reminder notice. At one time, that was a separate notice that we had to send out. We were able to combine them and save a mailing. So if you have delinquent, they're going to show up in that middle. But the reminder, again, by statute. So what's going to happen? I paid my taxes yesterday. I have a copy. I'm on the installment plan. That was my 4th installment. So this impacts installment payers too. That 4th installment is due March 31st, just like the regular tax is due by March 31st. So my installment payment, I paid it yesterday. When I paid it, I said, does that mean I'm going to get that silly reminder notice? And the staff said, yes, you're going to get that reminder notice. Because, of course, we had to send it to the printer 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And so you're going to get phone calls. I know our call center is going to get phone calls that said, why are they sending this to me? Because I paid my taxes. So what I'd like you to do is share with them to make sure they read the top line, which is in red. If you paid your taxes after March 4th, 5 p.m., that was the cutoff date to get the database together to send to the printer. So yes, we probably got your payment, but if you're concerned and you got this and you know you paid it, please call us because we're glad to verify for you. This is serious business. Your taxes on your home or your property are serious business. So we're not saying don't call us at all, but what we'd like you to do is point out, you know, you probably did the cross in the mail situation here because there's a 2-week lag. But feel free to say, but go ahead and call them, and or they can go online and pull their name up and it will show paid. But if they're not digital, have them give us a call because we're glad to handle that. So wanted to arm you with that information. And any questions on reminder notices or anything I've covered?
Any questions, Commissioner?
If not, I'm going to let Brenda tell you the good news about this reminder notice. There's really something special about this. Brenda.
So, you know, everything is about opportunities. So back in November, our office was contacted by Chief Chris Taylor with the Palatka Fire Department and Chad Hutchinson. And part of that reminder notice, we're able to put other things in with that notice that's going out in the mail. So in your packet, there is a public service announcement, what we refer to as a buck slip. So it's a 3-layer public service announcement. It looks like this. And what the printer does is they set this up, it's 2-sided. And so we were able to share some information about our office. And on the other side was some very exciting information that we're able to share going out in this notice. So not only does this public service announcement about smoke alarms have the potential to save lives, but it also has the potential to gain points that will help lower the ISO rating for the county. So we appreciate that Chad and Chris Taylor reached out to us. So this is going out in that reminder notice today as well. So that's about 31,000 mailers going out that have that information in it. And then we also will be mailing out that first installment in June, so there'll be some in that installment as well. But very exciting that we were able to partner with them and provide that information as well. Comments or questions?
Any questions? I just want to thank you for all your staff and y'all do with all the services that you provide. And really the office that I have contact most with is the one in Crescent City, and get a lot of compliments about how polite they are, how efficient. They just really are just steady, and a lot of people from Volusia County come up to use that office also. So thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for this update and report. Commissioner Rawls?
Is there any potential, or are you looking at any potential for like an ACH withdrawal or automatic payment?
For an individual to pay, we do ACH for certain situations.
Okay.
We plan on, thank you for that great intro. We're going to be back in.
But wait, there's more.
Coming back. How's that go? I'll be back. We'll be back in 2 or 3 months because we're waiting to see what legislation the governor signs. We've got a couple of things in the mix. We anticipate them being signed. We don't know. They haven't been, so we don't want to bring them up yet. But we'll be back maybe in the August-September window. We are doing much more digital because, I don't want to say we're being dragged there.
Yeah, you are.
My children might say I'm being dragged there. But it's an opportunity. Keeping in mind, Commissioner Rawls, as you know, much of our citizenry is not digital.
Right.
But we have a component, and of course the savings involved with digital is pretty large. So we are moving that direction, and in our next report we'll talk about our QR code opportunities, and they are now already on our tag renewals, and you will see them surfacing in other locations for ease of digital. And we are looking at people that we now have permission to send tax bills by email. So we have our software vendor putting that in. So we're going to report on that in a couple months. I don't want to steal our thunder now, though, but thank you for that, and we'll look into that ACH opportunity.
The other question I have, so I'll talk about myself personally. I built a home, finished it in early 2021. You're a year behind in the tax roll. So if I sign up for this, I don't believe we received anything for the taxes that would actually show our house being on the property. How does that work?
So for your first year, because there was a change in ownership, in this case, a change in a huge change. This year's, and if we can talk to you individually, there's often not smart to do it this first year because it's based on last year.
Right, correct.
That's all we can base it on because the first one's due in June. And the only thing we know was last year's tax bill. So for everybody else who hasn't had a major change, it's just last year's tax bill divided by 4. But then when the third bill comes due, and after all the taxing authorities have set their rates and the property appraiser has set the value, The third and fourth is like a little catch-up, and it's usually not much, because that doesn't change significantly. But it is based on last year's. So yours, in that case, would be based on last year's, which was nominal compared to that. So if you would reach out to us personally, it still may be of value, because your third and fourth then would split it, which is going to be a large dollar figure coming in.
I went in, I sent a picture to my wife and I asked her to get it set up on this. That way we don't have to worry about it. But
Well,
in our case, the ACH would work out perfect.
I get that.
Kicking, fighting, and screaming, we're just kind of rolling along with the digital world that's being presented to us. And unfortunately, we've made the shift to cloud-based and all that. So I think eventually all government agencies will be that way.
I think you're right.
But it's going to save a ton of money as well, and legwork.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our biggest, that had the most effect of that was maybe 4 years ago. We took the old paper file for county-held certificates, which must have 150,000 certificates, because they're good for 7 years. I mean, there's lots of them. That's probably a low number. And that used to be a paper file. It is now digital, and we have seen a significant change in increase of folks using that digital file and purchasing county helps, which is a fabulous opportunity for everybody involved. So that's all good news. But that was our first foray, and we have lots more to share the next time. I do want to thank again Chad and Chris Taylor, because it gave us an opportunity to use the other side. Whenever we do a buck slip, it doesn't cost us extra money to insert it because of the weight. We're still within. But we have to pay for this, so we have to use it for our office's purpose. It gave us the opportunity to share. Folks do not realize all the Florida State services that are available in our offices. So the front side, of course, is just saying, did you know? And we're going to continue with that. And finally, we're going to let you go on to the next. I know you've got a full agenda. I would say, if I can keep you organized, and I know I can, please hold this dear to your heart, or at least put it on your bookshelf where you can find it. And every time we bring an update, we'll ask you to put it in your folder. We're not going to give you new folders. And that way, if you have any questions about what we've talked about through the year, when somebody calls you or pings you, gosh, I remember they talked about that, you'll have it at your fingertips. With that,
She's very optimistic about you, isn't she?
I can do it.
you can, I know.
You can send it digitally.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ms.
yeah, you can make a folder if you want on your desktop, but in the meantime, the rest of us are going to have this. With that, thank you again for the opportunity to share this information. I think it's valuable to our citizens, our taxpayers, and hopefully it will be helpful to you all as well.
Okay, thank you, Linda and Brenda. Commissioner Harvey, you have a question or comment?
No, I just have a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, because I can't let Crescent City outweigh Interlochen. So you do a great job in the West End. I hear no complaints out there. And even during the COVID situation, it was very hard for you to do business, but you managed to do it anyway. And the citizens just love it out there. It saves them a whole drive in. They can get everything done that they need to get done in your office. And believe me, if there was problems, I would hear about it. I don't hear any problems from your office. So thank you so much for what y'all do in the West End too. And I will keep my folder. It's a challenge, okay?
So
I'll take the challenge head on.
please let me thank you for recognizing the talent our team has. Branches and the central office, we probably see somewhere between 500 to 600 of our taxpayers a day between those offices.
And I want to say
And it's controversial issues. I mean, they don't necessarily think that title is worth $85.
And I want to give another plug. You probably don't want me to, but
But
I had
anyways,
to
thank you
call-
for recognizing our team.
I had to call, I think, Ms. Brenda, not too long ago, a gentleman that was a longtime resident of West Putnam, had some life-changing situations happen to him. He had to come down here and take care of business in a very short period of time. And you stepped up, and he went down there and took care of all the problems he needed to take care of, came by to basically wish me farewell. He'd never probably ever come back again. His health was not going to allow it. But with tears in his eyes, he just spoke so highly of the work you did for him and took time out of your day. Surely he wasn't expecting it, but he had to get it done. And that's a testament of your department. So thank you very much.
Again, thanks for the opportunity to be here with you today and for all we do together collectively for Putnam County. And we'll let you move on.
Can I say one more thing?
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Probably
Rawls.
the only tax collector that's ever been praised in public.
Yeah, the Bible doesn't treat us too nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to have, I'm going to push Julianne off until right before the consent agenda with the county projects update. And we'll move down to the public hearings. And before we start, the 905 on the land development text, CA 2021-21005, we have an announcement on the 930, the vacation of Bass Drive. And I appreciate everybody coming up, and I will apologize to you after Administrator Suggs makes this announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, Board of County Commissioners, the administrator would ask that we pull or table this item for today. We would like to look a little further into actual ownership of this piece of property and then bring it back to you at a future meeting.
Okay, Administrator Suggs, thank you for comments. I personally want to apologize to each and every one of you. I see the faces here, and most of you were there yesterday when I met with you down at this location. I received this information where we made that decision, but I felt that I wanted y'all to come here and hear it from our administrator. Our county attorney is here. He may make a comment, and to see if any of the commissioners wanted to make a comment. And I'll allow the applicant to ask a couple of questions and one representative on the opposing side if there's one here. But I truly apologize for y'all having to drive all the way up here. But what I did not want to do was to try to get hold of people and not get hold of some and then get hold of some. I apologize for Clay Davis being here because he was going to be a part of this, but I wanted to make this announcement today rather than at 7:30 last night. So I hope you accept my apology. And we will work on this and move this forward. Staff will be in touch with Mr. Cartwright, who is the applicant. And Mr. Cartwright, I'll give the opportunity to come forward if you want to make a comment before we move on to the other.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Bobby. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Robert Cartwright. I'm the petitioner. My address here is 127 Tennessee Avenue, Crescent City, Florida. So, a little hard of hearing, so there's some question of title of what?
Rich, you want to?
The property that would be vacated.
That's being vacated, not the purchase, not the property I did purchase.
No, nobody said anything about that.
Okay, so I'm not being offensive. I just want to know what piece. So we got two different little pieces. So, then to answer my question is, everybody knows that I feel that the right-of-way issue goes with the property to each side, and that's the question and no other question. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, we got to ascertain ownership before we can answer any question about what we'll do with the
Bobby,
property.
there's never been a title search done by the county on that.
And I totally understand that. And that's, and I don't want to super discuss the issue today. So let's let y'all get your theory of where this is, and then we'll readdress it. I've waited 2 years. What's a few more months?
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, and I thank you for understanding.
No, this is what, when we leave this thing today, tomorrow, next week, or next year, we're gonna put this thing to rest. So, and I want it to be where nobody has any question about our ability to do our job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other body from River Park? Okay, I appreciate you. I hope you understand this, and this will come before us, and it'll be duly noticed at another meeting in the future. But we need to do more research because we want to make the correct decision. Commissioner Rawls?
Is it possible to get the names of the folks that are here today so they can be notified individually, or instead of just having to wait and look for a meeting? I doubt we're going to put signs back on the property to re-notify them, but they've, you know, in light of what I've seen from emails and conversations I've had, I think it would be prudent for us to do to reach out to these folks.
How many people from River Park filled out a comment card? Did you have any email address or phone numbers on them? You did? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. We'll put that in the database and we'll contact you from there. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Commissioner Harvey or Commissioner Turner?
I believe that, that we also need to repost that property with a sign whenever it comes time to do it, in case we miss some people that weren't able to make it this morning, that they would be notified via the new sign.
Mr. Chairman, we'll absolutely follow protocol as making sure that we do everything that we're supposed to do to legally advertise it so people will understand that there's going to be a public hearing on it when the time is right to do so. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner Turner. We'll certainly do that.
Okay.
I was just asking if maybe we could do that in addition to, even though it may not call for it, because we're putting this off, tabling this till a future date. If we could maybe just put the rezoning sign, or the sign, the cardboard sign that usually goes up there, and maybe we could stick it up there again just to notify the neighborhood at that time.
I don't see any issue with that. I believe you got a consensus of the board. We'll make sure that happens as well, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And Terry, you may not know this. What is the procedure of people getting notified, not just from the sign, but from a mailing? Is it a certain distance from the property? Is a number of people? How is that? Because some people, when I met with them yesterday, some complained that they didn't get anything, and I understood it was within few hundred feet or something like that. If you could
I believe that
clarify
is correct, sir. So we'll make sure, I'll get with Mr. Gabriel's office and make sure that we follow that protocol as well. Anybody that we have an address for on the database, we'll make sure they get some type of notification. I believe, Gabriel, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 300 feet?
I'm researching it now. It's 300 is the standard that we have, but I don't know if it calls for more for a vacation of a right-of-way.
Okay, well, we'll get that information after the meeting, Mr. Chairman, and we'll make sure that we follow protocol and get the letters mailed out.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You have any other comments?
I would think that since this involves an association, they would all be notified. That would be, I think, what would be prudent anyways. Do we have a list of everybody in the association? Is it possible to get that, or?
I'm not sure. Our department didn't handle the notification for this. Public Works may have handled it, so.
Okay.
That's correct. I was just verifying what our requirements are for notification, but we'll make sure, if there's an address or contact for the homeowner association, we can notify them as well, then hopefully they'll get it disseminated to their folks in case someone's missed.
Okay.
It would actually be, y'all don't have a homeowner association, it's a boat club, correct? And the organization, that's what I understood yesterday. So, but I'll get that clarified and get you that.
We'll do the best we can, Mr. Chairman, make sure everybody's notified.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Excuse me, I got a letter, I recently moved there.
Come up front. Come up front, please. State your name and address for the record.
My name is James Johnson. I recently moved to Crescent City in the River Park area, and actually have a boat and stuff down there. I'm not real familiar with all the stuff that's going on. I've seen the notices and the right-of-way, the issue, and then granted, there's a lot of different opinions. You know how you hear things, but like I said, I just was stating that I got a letter from the Public Works Department that about the hearing, and then also a copy of the map, stuff like that. So,
Okay.
and now that they're going to investigate even further, I think that's prudent.
Sir?
I said I think that's prudent.
Yes, sir. We're going to get some more information and clarify ownership
That's one of the reasons
of the
I'm
land
there.
itself. Yes, sir.
One of the reasons why I bought the property down there was the accessibility to the water and the boat club and all that. I'm sure it's what a lot of people do, so.
Exactly.
It's very nice.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. Okay, Gabriel, we'll move down to the first ordinance, CA 21-005.
bring about ordinance number 2022-02. An ordinance by the Board of County Commission amending Article 2, Division 2 of the Putnam County Land Development Code to provide criteria for sawmills, including site requirements and agricultural zoning districts where off-site wood is milled, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date.
Commissioners, are you able to see this on your screens?
We see the same thing you see.
Okay.
While they're fixing our technical difficulties, I'd like to welcome a special guest today, Mr. Mason Deloach, I see is over there. Mason, how are you today? Good. Stand up. How tall are you now? Look, when you walked in, it looks like you were catching up with your dad. So, glad to have you.
Yeah. You mean log in over there? Oh, take this over there? That's
Go ahead and set it on top.
Mr. Chairman, while we're working this out, could we have a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Give me time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to get back out.
It's still not.
You don't sound like she's gonna make it.
Get through these things. Ask for a recess and go, and then I'll try to make it back to the 2 o'clock.
Could you guys click off of this real quick? When you go off of it? I try to remember how to get back to the, like to minimize. Okay, there it goes. Okay. Should be good. Has a good charge on it, right? Yeah.
So can you?
Yeah. Great, so let me know.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good morning again, Commissioners. Like I said, this is the first reading of Ordinance 2022, number 2. The ordinance by the Board of County Commissioners amending Article 2, Division 2 of the Putnam County Land Development Code to provide criteria for sawmills, including site requirements in agricultural zoning districts where off-site wood is milled, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date. Florida Statute 12566, this is the first reading of the proposed ordinance for amending language on allowed uses in the Land Development Code. Proposed ordinance is required by state statute to be heard before the Board of County Commissioners twice. One of those hearings is required to be after 5 p.m. on a weekday. Second hearing on this proposed ordinance will be scheduled by the Board of County Commissioners. The application by Justin Morris requesting to amend Article 2, Division 2, Section 4559, and Article 2, Division 3, Section 4572, requesting to make a distinction between commercial and personal use sawmills as regulated by the Land Development Code. Subject LDC text amendment proposes to revise allowances for sawmills operations in the agricultural zoning district. LDC currently permits sawmill operations by right in the industrial heavy zoning designation. The current LDC permits sawmills where wood is to be processed and grown from trees on site of the sawmill by special use permit approved in the agriculture zoning district. The applicant is requesting an amendment to the LDC to eliminate current restrictions of the use of sawmill as a commercial agriculture-related use in the ag zoning district. Applicant proposes to eliminate the prohibition on the bringing of logs from off-site for use in the sawmill. Applicant further proposes to permit any sawmill as commercial ag-related use to be restricted only based on the horsepower of said sawmill. Additionally, the proposed text amendment would add an additional use to be called sawmills for personal use under the allowances by right for the ag zoning district with the same horsepower limitation for the motor. So essentially you can see here the strike through underline 4559. The applicant chose to remove where wood is grown from trees on site of the sawmill and to change that to where the sawmill is powered by a motor not to exceed 40 horsepower. This is the commercial ag-related section which requires a special use permit. Additionally, they would like to include a certain use allowed in the ag district by right for sawmills for personal use where the sawmill is powered by a motor not to exceed 40 horsepower. Staff recommends denial of the proposed changes as presented by the applicant. It's the position of the staff that the proposal would continue to protect residential and agricultural uses on ag-zoned lands while providing an additional avenue by which the landowner may operate a sawmill with special use approval without the wood sourcing restriction. So what staff has proposed is that we change with the special use permit, we have both on-site and off-site. So the existing code would remain. We would just add on-site sawmills where the wood is grown from trees on-site. Then we would also have an off-site sawmill section where the wood may be grown on or off-site. Off-site sawmills must abide by the following supplemental standards. The sawmill must be located on a parcel of land equal to or exceeding 15 acres. An off-site sawmill operation must be set back 500 foot from all property lines. The sawmill is required to be located on a county-maintained collector or arterial road and must not require significant non-residential traffic to pass through established neighborhoods. So the reason that we looked at it like this was the majority of the ag zone property in Putnam County, a lot of it is residential use, and in theory, one could just open up a sawmill shop on a property that's maybe an acre, acre and a half in a subdivision that has been established for residential use. Staff does recognize that there may be sites zoned agriculture that would be appropriate for sawmill use where wood may be brought from off-site. To accommodate this possible use, staff proposes an additional use for the commercial ag-related uses, which is still subject to the approval of a special use permit. Furthermore, the setback distance of 500 foot was something that we came up with by looking at sound levels and a normal subdivision of 55 to 60 decibels. We used an OSHA study that states that machinery associated with sawmills operates between 95 and 110 decibels. In sound measurement, the inverse square law describes the reduction of the intensity of sound over distance. A common way of expressing the inverse square law in acoustics, as further explained in OSHA Technical Manual, Section 3, Chapter 5, Subsection 2B6, is that in a free field, sound pressure measured in decibels decreases 6 decibels each time the distance from that point source is doubled. Therefore, the level of sound outside of a residence that is a distance of 512 foot from the point of sound, i.e. the sawmill, separated by only free land, assuming that at 1 foot of distance the sound is measured at 110 decibels, would theoretically be 56 decibels. So that's that breakdown of why we're requiring the setback. This text amendment was heard at the Planning Commission on February 9th, 2022, where they voted unanimously to recommend denial of both the applicant's and staff's recommendation on the LDC text amendment. Again, staff's recommendation, any such sawmill operation would be required to be reviewed by and receive approval from the development review, and may be required to provide roadway improvements to maintain minimum adopted levels of service and minimum facility standards as allowed by Article 5 of the Land Development Code and the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends approval of staff suggested LDC revisions to Section 4559. Any questions?
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Adamsack?
Yeah, so I have several questions. The first thing I want to note is that I did serve with Justin Morris on the Contractors Board prior to becoming County Commissioner, and it will not affect the way I vote today, but I just wanted to make that out there. Currently, if, let's say I wanted to buy a sawmill and put it on my property as just something I'm going to cut some trees on my property, what, do I have to do a special use permit?
No, sir. So if you have a sawmill that's ancillary to the primary use of that property, if it's just purely a hobby, you wouldn't need to do anything.
So this is only for if someone's going to utilize the sawmill to resell product or to, so not personal use. So currently there's no restrictions, acreage or anything else like that on a regular resident. I mean, with the price of lumber and stuff, there's several people I know that are looking into buying these. I know where there are several already in operation. So I just want to make sure those people aren't affected by this.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay. My only concern about the horsepower part, which I guess you guys got rid of that, would be a lot of these sawmills operate off of a tractor. Like for instance, my tractor's 55 horsepower. So the one I'm looking at would be operated off a 55 horsepower motor, which in fact would be quieter than the one that's on a standalone sawmill. Because my tractor doesn't make a lot of noise, but it has the power at the PTO to run it. So I'm totally against limiting it by horsepower. Looks like you guys removed that. Then my only other concern is the 500 feet from all property lines. I get the noise, but I'd rather have a time restriction on that, like from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m., something like that. It is normal for noise to occur off agricultural land for agricultural uses, and a big portion of our agricultural land is forest. I think we need to look upon that favorably, because unfortunately we don't grow a whole ton of crops here in Putnam County. We grow a lot of trees. They just got an award for their tree farm there today. I know of no one really growing many crops outside of blueberries near where I live. Most of them are harvesting logs, and some of them do utilize them on site. And I don't want to take that ability away from someone. Let's say someone gets a cypress log one time to bring it into somebody. I don't want them not to be able to utilize that log. This seems a little bit overbearing to me, but I'll hear what the other commissioners have to say now.
Okay, before I go to Commissioner Turner, with a personal sawmill that I would buy and put in my yard and I can cut my own wood, trees growing on my property, is there a horsepower restriction there now?
No, sir, we do not have a horsepower restriction.
Okay, all right, Commissioner Turner?
I have several questions, and I imagine some of these would have been answered last week if I had been able to meet with staff, but our schedules just wouldn't get together on it. So my apologies if any of these are something that you would have covered. First of all, I think we need to keep in mind here that I'll bet you at least 20 to 30% of the subdivisions in Putnam County are zoned ag, and the lots in them are zoned ag. How would you like to build you a house in a 1 acre subdivision zoned ag, or even a 3 acre subdivision zoned ag, and the next door neighbor comes in and opens a sawmill? I don't care if it's for them. I don't care if it's for a hobby. I don't care, especially to bringing wood in and make it a commercial venture. The only way that I see that can be adjusted, would be to make it a special use permit, where you have a citizens board that can go in there and say, oh yes, you have 85 acres and your sawmill's gonna be 300 feet from anybody and you know, or 300 feet from anybody's land, but their house is on the other side of their 85 acres, so it shouldn't affect them. Because while one of my fundamental beliefs is that Mr. Morris has the right to do whatever with his land that he possibly could do with it, as long as he's not affecting somebody else who has the same right next door. So I believe that to be the case. Is it allowed by special permit now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is allowed. In agriculture, though, there's a restriction on the sourcing of the wood. So you
I
can.
understand. Well, I would take that off. The sourcing of the wood doesn't bother me much. I don't care if you buy it from me or buy it from a neighbor or use it off my own property. That's not the part that bothered me personally. It's that you can't bring it in there and operate a sawmill in an area is the part that bothers me. So as long as you have a citizens board that's making sure that somebody can't abuse all their neighbors. If I got mad at my neighbor and I was in an ag zoned area, I'd go buy me a sawmill just to upset him. I mean, I'm serious here. That happens. Y'all may laugh and giggle, but it happens. So, and that's why we have zoning laws, are for those kind of things. So the staff requested what the changes, the new changes that staff requested. Is that were those changes presented after the planning commission?
They were presented at the planning commission
At
meeting.
the planning commission.
Yes, sir.
So basically, the planning commission turned down both y'all's changes and said, just leave it alone.
Correct. They wanted to. They really didn't make much of a judgment on staff's. I know their motion was to deny the recommendation by the applicant, but they didn't really consider staff's. But in not considering it, they effectively, well, didn't deny it, but didn't issue a recommendation on it.
Never mind, I'm counting to 3 where I don't say something stupid. As usual. So the recommendation at this time from staff wasn't really talked about at the planning commission?
Well, no, it was. We spoke about it at length. They just
They didn't agree that you ought to be able to go find, because I believe you should ask, if you wanted to build a pig pen next to the courthouse, you should be able to ask somebody, could you? Chances are you'd never get something like that, and you shouldn't, because that's what the epitome of zoning laws are. But you should still have the opportunity to go ask somebody to do that. So, and I think this is one of those same situations, and this isn't aimed at Mr. Morris in any way whatsoever. Anyone that wants to do something with their property ought to have somebody they can go ask and say, can I do this or not? And then you've got to trust in your citizen boards. You've got to trust in the ZBOA to make the proper decision and the planning commission to make the proper decision. So the part of it where you can just have a sawmill on any ag piece property in Putnam County, I'll adamantly defend we should not do that. That is not, I would not want somebody building a sawmill next to my house because they're mad at me. But the part that gives that person the right to ask to put a sawmill next to their house and go ask the ZBOA for a special permit, that's a different story to me. So I think that's about as plain as I can be about it, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, that was the intent of staff's allowance, to allow an applicant to come forward with certain criteria judged by the ZBOA if they wanted to source the wood from off-site, which is not currently permitted. So it would be to broaden that allowance.
But if I may, I think that was an answer to my
Yeah.
question. So if I may, so what you're saying is if we change it to where you could bring it from off-site, you still would have to get a special use permit
Yes.
in order to have the sawmill.
Correct.
Because there are times in this county to where agricultural type lands would be a great place to have a small sawmill and with the wood brought in from off-site. But those areas need to be selected and looked at and studied by the ZBOA through the special exception process, and make sure that they're a good place to have a sawmill.
Yes.
Because we can't just have sawmills in industrial areas only, especially small sawmills that you would use to cut lumber for a building business or a whatever, not a large commercial venture.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Adamsack?
Yeah, and I think my reading of this, that's what you're trying to do, is give something that allows the ZBOA to decide if it's a feasible location. So I appreciate that part of it. Again, I think the number one and number two kind of conflict each other, because it's going to be hard for a 15-acre site to be 500 feet from all property lines. That's almost impossible on most 15-acre sites, because they're either narrow and long or wide and narrow. The way it's written, I won't stand for this. I'm on page 90. I just don't think that it allows for enough possible uses. Probably the best locations aren't on an arterial road. They're probably on some dirt road where someone owns 500 acres and they own most of the road as well. So I don't want that in there either to be a restriction against it. I'd rather, like Commissioner Turner said, allow the ZBOA to make those determinations on a per site basis. I do like what Commissioner Turner said about it being a certain distance from a building. I mean, that makes sense. I don't want it 500 feet from my house per se. But I think if we limited the times of operation, I think that's more applicable in this case, and that's what I've seen in other locations that I've lived, and I have had a sawmill.
In addition to,
No, separate in place of.
it'd be good as an in addition to or along with or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm looking at changing 500 feet from property lines from buildings. So just changing that, I don't know, and I don't know if that's acceptable to the commission. And then in addition to that, then, would be the requirement of operation hours. How's that? And I don't like number 3 at all, only because I think most of the best use scenarios are locations that are not on arterial roads.
If
Just
I
my
may-
opinion.
I'm sorry. If I may address number 3, Mr. Chairman, the reason we included that in there is simply because of the log trucks. If it's not on a county-maintained collector or arterial road, and they're using an easement or something else that we can't be assured of maintenance on, they could create just destruction of the road because of the weight, or potholes, and then affect other people.
So I'll say this, I had my property logged, and I'm on the easement, and it's my job as the easement owner to remediate whatever damage is done. So, and it should be part of your contract with whatever logger or whoever's trucking it in, if you're a good business person, to make sure that's part of your performance contract as well. So maybe we could put some language in there pertaining to that, but then I think it's getting pretty convoluted. But I think any neighbor in good faith is gonna do that with their easement, and they probably need their easement for their ingress and egress. So they're not gonna have some log truck come in through the easement and make it so they can't get access to their sawmill. That's kind of counterintuitive. But again, number 3, I can't do, but thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So right now, if I went down to wherever and bought me a little portable sawmill, I could go out to my lot, cut my own trees, saw my own wood, correct?
Correct.
As long as I didn't bring your wood to my property, we're in good shape,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So we're only talking really a commercial type business here.
Yes.
And I have to agree with Commissioner Adamczak and Commissioner Turner. Horsepower, I think we can dump that for certain reasons, and I do believe most tractors are quieter than engines are that are like, well, I'm not going to name names. I do like the times of operation. I would also like to get rid of item 3, number 3. Sometimes the loggers tear up our county maintained roads, and we have to go out there at our expense and fix them. Although we ask them to do it, they don't always do that. And so I think that could be eliminated there. And I do like the idea that they go before the ZBOA, group of their peers, to request a special use permit. And then if there's any restrictions, I'm not so sure I like the 500 feet either. I think that might be a little bit too much. You know, you need, in agriculture area, you kind of, I don't want to say enjoy those sounds, but you know those sounds are coming. That's what you live in that area for. I remember when I first got here, we had a restriction on generators. And I was like, why do we have a restriction on generators with hurricanes? You want to hear those generators fire up in the neighborhood because you want to go to the house and take a bath if you can't. You know what I'm saying? Or you want to go grab something to eat because they got refrigeration. You know? I mean, there's certain noises you want to hear at certain times, and you're used to that. You know, we can't live in an island by ourselves. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, before I go to Commissioner Turner, I agree with all of these, and the horsepower I don't think is a big deal. But one thing I am concerned with, and each one of these things would have an enforcement mechanism, whether it's, you know, the roads or the setbacks, all those type things. But in my area, people irrigate with diesel motors, okay? And they're loud, and some people have put these together and they don't have an adequate muffler system. So something needs to be addressed in there about the noise, because Commissioner Adamczak's tractor might be quiet, but Commissioner Harvey's may not be quiet, okay? And it may be an old gas motor that backfires and those type of things. So that needs to be in there addressed also. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 500 feet is probably not as necessary as a minimum, as long as it's still got to go to the planning commission, the ZBOA, because the ZBOA can set those minimums in that meeting. They can set what the minimum is, so they may find a spot somewhere to where if someone owns 2 pieces of property, for instance, and both pieces of property are 100 acres, if we give them a 500-foot setback, even though they own both of those pieces of property, they'd have to set back from the partial property line. So that, instead of putting it right in the middle of his 200 acres. So I don't think that's, I'm in agreement with the other commissioners that that's really not a big deal. As long as it can be, those different items can be set by the ZBOA when it gets there. But I do think we need to have something in there for sound, because Commissioner Pickens is absolutely spot on. When you're running a sawmill that doesn't run but 6 days a year, you don't really care if the muffler works real good on it or not. You got some earplugs. Your neighbors may not have earplugs for the 250 feet around you or even further, that this would be so loud. Reminds me of the time, and I hate to bring this up, I'll probably get a stare. But it reminds me of the time that we turned down a motorcycle track.
You were just reading my mind.
Because of noise. I told you I'd get the stare.
Just wrote that down.
Yeah, I got one from him too, so it wasn't just you, Julianne, it was also him. But anyhow, it reminds me of the same thing. A lot of it is all about the noise. So I think there's some way, if we're gonna do this, we got to be able to, and in my commissioner comments today, I'm gonna go ahead and start the thing now, because it's directly pertinent to what we're talking about. Willaca came up with a noise ordinance. I don't know if it's gonna work or not. Willaca. the town of Willaca, I noticed it the other day. I saw it somewhere. I don't even know where now at this point, but they came up with it and passed it. I think maybe it was in the paper. And so, they came up with certain decibels for different things. Well, if they can do it, then I think we can start looking at it again, because it wasn't that long ago, we just felt like we couldn't come up with one that would be enforceable. And if that's still the case, and then fine, be that. But I just don't think, I think we've got to have something in there, even if we don't put it on their noise, that the engines have to be in good working order, or the exhaust systems have to remain in good working order, where they can't just pull the muffler off the thing and just let it fire straight pipe. I mean, because we're all young enough, we remember how that was on our hot rods back when we was kids. It was pretty noisy.
And now we're getting paid back.
Exactly. So, anyhow, I think we should put something in for noise. The 500-foot thing doesn't bother me at all, to take it out. And the other thing, we need to have something in there for a road. In other words, maybe we could tackle it from just a little different angle. That that for the private road that's owned, from wherever the end of the county maintained road is, from the private road, from there to their sawmill, they have to either own that road, or they have to have a maintenance agreement on that road, one or the other. That way they can't go in there and let it be a big rain like they did out there one time off of Yelverton Road, and they were cutting timber and they had a big rainstorm, and that road still ain't right. And it's been 3 years ago, and he spent money, he dug the ditches, he rated it out, the logger did. I mean, I'm telling you, he's tried. But it ain't been right, because it was in such bad shape when they tore it up with them log trucks that day. And it was all within a 2-day period of time. So I think we do need something in there for the protection of not just his roads, but if he's driving on his neighbor's road to get into his sawmill, whoever he or she, then we need to make sure that neighbor's protected, that we don't allow them by statute just to drive on that road without either a maintenance agreement or they own that road, one or the other. So that's just fair, I think. So anyhow, those would be the two things, Mr. Chairman. I think we got to do something about noise, and I think we've got to do something, and it could be handled just as easily probably by saying something like the muffler systems on the sawmill must be in place as originally designed, or something. So, and we've got to do something with the roads. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Rawl?
I agree with everything that's being tossed around. I wrote a note here that enforcement is going to be difficult, and I'm not sure who would be able to enforce it and what we'd be able to put in place. The sheriff's department is not going to want to go out there with the decibel meter and do that. I don't know that code enforcement are going to have the time to do it. So I think it's just something we need to, if we're going to do this, we need to be able to have some sort of enforcement method, so we don't have people coming in saying, you set me up, you said that y'all were going to restrict this, and now you're not enforcing it. And I could think of at least one person that we've heard from more than once.
Jeff, are you talking about the sound ordinance?
Yep.
Okay, so
The noise
I
levels.
wish I hadn't even brought that up yet, because I don't want this to go down that path. I'm trying to keep it on subject, but I did have that in to talk about later on today, but I was trying to keep it.
No, it's definitely germane to this conversation.
Absolutely,
And I agree with you. When you mentioned the motorcycle track in Boswick, there, the part of the problem that I was told was that these folks want to bring people in from out of, in some cases, out of country. to be able to practice their riding, and the noise would be unbearable. There's a customer I'm working with right now that just bought 110 acres, and they want to have a farm, and they're going to build multiple buildings on it. And we're talking agricultural property, but they're going to divide it and put a staff house on there for somebody to maintain the farm, and then their own house. And so The question is if they decided to get into a business that was loud, or if they had to put an irrigation pump in that was loud. I think we just need to be very deliberate in how we go down this road. I'm definitely in favor of the suggested changes, but I think that this will be the precursor to many other activities. And I asked Mr. Commando if he knew what the definition of cottage industry is, because the state is tossing that around right now. You have your cottage food industry. This could become one of those cottage industries if we're not careful. The other day I bought a wood carved flag from a gentleman at the fair. He's making those in his shop and selling them at the fair and other events. So it's just going to be one of those slippery slopes. But I don't want to preclude somebody from having the ability to be able to come in and saw lumber. It's always been a peeve of mine, and I've been responsible for the destruction of many trees and hauling off a lot of trees. I've always said I hate to see this oak tree go, where somebody could use it, or a big cedar tree. But I just think we need to be very careful here.
Okay, Commissioner Adams, that?
I agree with Commissioner Turner on the sound. I think if you put it towards the proper equipment, maintained equipment with proper exhaust, I think that adequately answers that question. And I don't think a commercial operation is going to use one of those chainsaw-driven ones. I would hope not, but that would be allowed as well. And I don't know how you would measure that, but that's neither here nor there. So what's the next step? Would they rewrite something based on our feedback and bring it back to us, or?
That's what I was going to say. Is it
or do we
okay
want
with
to
everybody that we've given them some suggestions and staff would come up with a recommendation? Now, would this go back to the Planning Commission for review and then come back to us?
Yeah, if everybody agrees that we do want to see a little change here, or that a little change is justified, and we pretty much agree to what we're talking about, and I think we have here. I haven't heard anybody that was against any, really hardbore against any industries or ideas, so maybe we ask the Planning Commission to take another look at it. I would feel a lot more comfortable doing that than just coming in here and overturning the Planning Commission's decision. That's hard for me to do. So I think that's what I'd like to see, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to see it go back to the Planning Commission and ask them to take a look at it again.
Okay. Waive support.
And with the changes that we've discussed here today, you didn't get all you wanted, he didn't get all he wanted, but we've made an avenue that it could happen in.
Mr. Chairman.
You're going to get a chance, Mr. Morris.
May I address a few points that were made? So on the Planning Commission issue, staff would just need consensus on what issues need to be resolved and what the recommendation is to. There were many points brought up, so.
Can I try that?
On the issue of the motor, though, I have to. I just caution that code enforcement is not really equipped to enforce that.
Mr. Chairman, Gabriel, if I can cut you off for just a second. Given that I understand where you folks are wanting to go with this, and so if it's amenable to the commissioners, I think we got enough direction as to some of their concerns and comments from here this morning to bring something back and draft something. And then if we need to, we can meet with you individually and then take it back to the planning board to see if we can keep this thing processing through, if that's okay. We can discuss the sound ordinance issues later. But for now, I want to keep this thing moving forward.
While it's relevant, like Commissioner Hall says, it's relevant, but it's not part of this discussion other than it's relevant, because that's a whole different can of worms we're going to open up.
Yes, sir, we are. So if it's okay, I think we can go back and take the recommendations that we've heard from all five of you here this morning and start working up something with Mr. Quintus and his staff. And then prior to bringing it back to the planning board, I think it'll be understandable if we were to sit down with each of you and make sure we captured what it is that you're looking for, and then re-advertise and go back to the planning board.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to be clear on the points were that number 2 be changed to from buildings. Eliminated altogether? Okay, so then address sound in another manner?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just understood our administrator is going to get with you.
Yeah,
And then we're going to get with you individually, so I don't think we need to hash out all those
Right.
points right now.
And you can contact each commissioner, you know, and just say, hey, does this sound like, you know, everything that we talked about, so.
Okay.
Okay, so this takes care of one of the items is that, we don't have to, we're not gonna move forward y'all's recommendation. We're gonna have you work on the recommendation. Now the task at his hand is whether we're gonna move forward the recommendation by Mr. Morris. Is that correct?
Now the task at hand is what now, sorry?
Whether we're gonna move forward the
Correct.
recommendations from Mr. Morris.
Yes, sir, that's right.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. Morris to come up. He's the applicant, and I'll have public comment after that. Mr. Morris, I know that you've already been to the planning commission and had a detailed presentation.
Yes, sir.
And it looks like they unanimously turned that recommendation down, and then staff has not recommended either. So I was just wondering if you want to give us some points on any changes and
I'm
just give you a few minutes. We don't need a whole long PowerPoint at all today. We just need maybe anything that you have maybe changed or might shed some light on this.
Let me start off by saying it's frustrating that they can come up here and give 30 or 45 minutes of their side of the story and then I just get cut off. I can tell from the conversation thus far that you guys have relatively made up your minds, give or take a little bit of movement. Let me say also that what is going on and the views and the opinions of what you guys are calling sawmills shows a complete misunderstanding, as does planning development, about what a sawmill, what the sawmills we're trying to deal with here are. The whole purpose of this presentation and this land development code change is not to make it where anybody can have any kind of sawmill that they want. And the reason for the 40 horsepower restriction is because that is the easiest place to delineate between personal use and commercial, and it's also the easiest place to delineate for sound without having to have an individual go out and survey the site and determine buffers and all that. 40 horsepower motor is no different than lawnmowers on your residential zero-turn lawnmowers, no generators. I mean, a 40 horsepower is not large enough to, can you conduct some sort of commercial operation with a 40 horsepower motor? Yes, if you dedicated every minute and ran that machine at its maximum, you possibly could turn it into a commercial operation. But that is not the case. The bulk of the sawmills that under 40 horsepower, 99% of them, are personal use sawmills in people's backyards where they're getting wood from their neighbor or their local tree surgeon or just byproduct wood. They're not bringing in semi-trucks of wood. They're not bringing in loader trucks of wood. 9 times out of 10, they come in on a car trailer and they have to unload individual logs. So the biggest problem in this entire operation is that it's not y'all's fault, it's everybody's fault. They see the word sawmill, and that's what they associate. They put sawmills in one box, and that's not the case here. We have industrial sawmills in the county. We have personal use sawmills, and to lump all that under one category does a disservice to the citizens of Putnam County. There's too many people in this county that are self-sufficient and want to do these things. They want to do the things on their own. So it is important, it is paramount that the board understands that there is a way to answer your problems. You gave the example of a 55 horsepower tractor being quieter than one of these motors. That's true, but do you know that they power commercial circular sawmills with tractor motors off of PTO shafts? That is even though that's quieter, doesn't mean that it is representative of what's going on in the lower classifications. 55 horsepower still needs to have, regardless of whether it's a tractor or whatever, still needs to have a special use permit assigned to it. I understand that. And by no means am I trying to get up here and say that we should not be assigning special use permits to sawmills over 40 horsepower. That is not the intent of this land development code change. That I understand everything that you guys said up here today, and I absolutely agree with everything that's said up here as that pertains to sawmills greater than 40 horsepower. When it gets below 40 horsepower, all the problems that you guys have, every issue that you guys just mentioned about having with sawmills, traffic, sound, commercial viability, all those things go away when you get below 40 horsepower on a sawmill. And that is the uphill battle that I have fought this whole way. The other thing that is misleading right from jump was you guys asked, if I bring a little sawmill to do my stuff at my house, is there anything that regulates against it? The answer to that question is there absolutely is. There is only one place in the entire land development code where the word sawmill appears, and that is in a commercial agriculture use category. Everywhere else that you would put a sawmill, an industrial level sawmill, requires an interpretation of the code. You can't project that one classification of sawmill into everything. So we need to define, and in that use category, the only definition of that is sawmill where trees are grown from the land that the sawmill's on, which is not viable for any sawmill that's in operation. So I'd be happy to go through this individually or whatever. I'm kind of upset that I didn't get any calls on this. Unfortunately, I didn't understand some of the procedural stuff, and I appreciate Gabriel making the phone call this morning. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been. I didn't know that I had to be here until an hour ago. So I'm fairly unprepared, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, the importance of this land development code is for the individuals that are not trying to be commercial. The use of a special advisory board, a citizens board to review this and that. Let me tell you, I've been through applications for special use permit. I've been through the planning commission list. And for a citizen who has no involvement with government entities, it is a daunting task to put all the paperwork together and then have the ability to get up here in front of a board that can be intimidating, and more intimidating to people that don't have any public speaking experience. To go through that procedure is, from the citizen side, almost impossible. It's easy for you guys because you guys do this every month. It's easy for them because they get paid 40 hours a week to prepare for this stuff. But from this side of the table, this side of the bench, this is a difficult process to go through, whether for this land development code change or special use permit, or, I mean, for you guys it says, well, we'll let a citizen board review each case. But the time and money and stress that are involved with that procedure, with those procedures, are extremely taxing on the citizens. So the presentation that I was going to give shows 2 aerial photos in it. It shows one aerial photo.
How long is it? How long is your presentation? I apologize if you think I'm going to cut you off. How long is the presentation?
It's probably 15 or 20 minutes. I can touch on it. I mean, I'm not even looking at it, but I'm so involved with this.
Okay, all right.
Justin, I'm having a hard time understanding what specifically your issue is with what we were talking about. Because we were talking about a specific part of
the issue I have is that the word sawmill lumps everything into one category. And the people that are using these personal use sawmills, most of them would fit in the bed of a truck. The problem I have is planning and zoning came in here and said, oh, no, we don't have issue with people with personal use sawmills, but they absolutely do. Because if they get a complaint from the neighbor, and I know because I've been through a special use permit on a commercial sawmill, the first thing that happens when they get a complaint from the neighbor is codes enforcement goes to the book And oh, it's a sawmill, let's see what we have to do about it. So they go through the thing, and in the whole land development code, since sawmill only appears in one place, they're required to have a special use permit. Well, everybody that has a 12, 14-foot long hobby sawmill would fall into that definition generated by a complaint from the neighbor. And that's not how it should be. That's not how it should be. I understand larger scale commercial grade sawmills should be regulated. There's no denying that. But we are talking about a completely different facet
Justin.
of wood production.
Excuse me, Commissioner Hurry, are you done, Commissioner Adams?
I have a question for Gabriel. And I apologize, and you may have the same question. I thought we already mentioned that if they're using it for private use, logs on land, that they can have a sawmill on agricultural land.
Correct. That's correct.
It's already allowed. Because it's allowed by not being disallowed. That's how I understand it.
No. It falls under the use category of commercial ag-related, and in the section where it talks previously about
But that's for a
commercial
special
agriculture.
use permission, for if you're
Yeah,
bringing
let's-
logs from off-site.
Let's
correct?
not get in a debate on it. So, Gabriel, you want to answer the question?
Yes.
And I'm going to stop you just for a minute, because every commissioner
Go
wants to
right
ask you
ahead.
some
I've heard
questions, okay?
So currently, the personal use of a saw for personal purposes as an ancillary use to single-family residence is not regulated by the Land Development Code. And we don't want to get into regulation of that because it could inhibit certain activities that people should be able to have on their property. As long as they're not creating a nuisance, there should be no reason that a code enforcement case is filed. Now, the other question about the special use permit, so currently in agriculture, if you wish to run a commercial sawmill operation, you do have to get a special use permit for that, and it can only be wood sourced on-site. But for personal purposes, that's not regulated by the code.
Okay. Commissioner Adams, any more?
I guess I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey was next, and then Commissioner Turner.
Thank you.
Can I respond to that one time before I take that question?
That's up to the chairman.
Yes, you can respond.
So his clarification there does not take into the account the opinions of the citizens who feel like there's an overbearing, okay, so if I called up here and I
Chairman,
said.
I don't think it's proper that Mr. Moore's gonna sit there and talk to our staff like that.
Well, he's talking to me. He's giving an opinion to me, and then I'll stop the
It's nothing personal
debate.
against Gabriel, it's just how I feel that some of this stuff's being interpreted.
I understand, but it's your interpretation versus theirs, and unfortunately, in this forum, it ain't your turn.
All right.
He-
Commissioner Harvey?
Wait, however,
Justin, Mr. Morris, let me ask you this. You said 99% of the people you deal with have personal sawmills, and this doesn't affect them. Okay, you said that earlier. You said anything under 40 horsepower, it should just automatically be taken care of. You did mention a second ago that your biggest complaint, the complaint you had was codes on a commercial sawmill. You didn't mention personal. And the reason I'm going there is this. Neighbors turn in neighbors all day long. You worked over there, you know this.
absolutely.
For garbage on the ground, for whatever reason, they're mad about this and they're mad about that. But I couldn't bring in a little sawmill on my property, and I know that. I don't have enough room to do that. But if I had some room and I was in ag and I wanted to saw up my own wood, it's not a problem, okay? I've done that before where I've actually cut some cedar trees down and hauled them off to go get them sawed off, to another location, because I can't do it on my property. I don't see a problem with that. I really don't. And honestly, I've been here 8 years now, and you're the first one that's ever come to me complaining about a sawmill situation. We haven't had, I used to insure some of those sawmills as an insurance agent. Never once have I gotten a complaint in West Putnam that somebody's upset about my sawmill. It's not happening. So my question to you, if you don't mind, is what brings you here today? Were you turned down for a sawmill application?
Absolutely
Or are
not.
you sticking up for the industry? Is that how you're
I'm sticking up for about a dozen people that I know that own them, that if they had And part of it is a misconceived notion. They saw a special use permit get issued to a commercial level sawmill, but that SUP, the generation of that SUP started from a codes case. Neighbors complained that the sawmill was there. It was a portable sawmill, slightly larger than what you would see on a personal hobby level. And everybody immediately was scared that that would happen to them. And the thing that prompted that was there's no distinction in the Land Development Code that addresses small mills, small scale mills. There's no way to differentiate between any of the sawmills. There also is nothing that addresses sawmills, not one thing that addresses sawmills where the wood comes from off-site.
Okay,
And the
so let
Land
me
Development,
interrupt you.
the
Let me
Planning
interrupt you real
Commission
quick.
and the Zoning Board of Adjustment had a difficulty with
All
that
right,
section.
real quick, you want us to identify what's a personal sawmill versus a commercial, that's what your goal here is today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, you got that, Gabriel?
And
In your notes?
remove
I-
the requirement of the
That's a- that's-
SUP.
Right, okay. All right, Commissioner Turner?
Okay. You know, I understand you're upset. I get it. But the Land Development Code, you know this, you're not a newbie at this. You've done this longer than I've done it as far as being involved in government, and you are a past building inspector and I think a code enforcement officer, and you're working with LACA now is the same, and so you're not new at this, Justin. So the point that I'm making, the Land Development Code's number one thing that they're there for is to protect the welfare and the health of the neighbors. Where I can't buy a piece of property in the middle of a subdivision and go set up my subdivision. If it's a 5-acre property, even if I can only cut the stuff on my property, even a 4-horse sawmill runs off a chainsaw. That son of a gun can be heard. If you could go out there in the parking lot out front, and I'll crank up a chainsaw, and if you'll be honest about it, you tell me if you can hear it out there at the old Miller Supermarket store. Now, that's less than 40 horsepower, but that should only be allowed for a short period of time on somebody's property that they're cutting their own wood for their own use. That's it. That's my opinion. Not your opinion. I understand. That's my opinion. The other thing is that if we don't build things in here as much, in the 40 years I've been involved in politics in this county, I've never seen a commission that's as conservative on land use issues as what the 5 people up here today are. Not once. And you can't either. So I'm telling you, we've still got to have protections for the citizens of this county. We've got to.
I
And
agree with
the
that.
only way that we can build them in is to have some type of, I want you to be able to do, or any other citizen, to be able to do what they want to do with their property, but not at the expense of all the other people in the neighborhood or all the adjacent landowners, or whether it's you or one of your other friends that have a sawmill. So, you know, normally, if we weren't trying to work something out, I feel that we would have just upheld the recommendation of the Planning Commission. This would have been over today. I'll tell you that right now. It was hard for me not to do that coming in here because there's so many reasons why you could just do that.
Right.
Instead of asking our volunteer citizens board to go and take another look at this again. And they may come back to the same thing again and say, look, we just can't get there, guys. But at least we've asked our planning authority to take another look at it. And if they will, then great. You know, and if they can't come up with any better other way to get there than what we are right now, I'm not voting for it in the form it's in right now. I just uphold the recommendation of the planning commission. This will be over.
I agree with the direction some of their changes are going, but they're overbearing in
Understand.
my opinion. Okay.
You
the
and I both understand, because we're not that far apart in personalities here. We don't like anybody telling us what to do, period.
Right.
So anybody that tells us what to do is overbearing. I get it. Me too. I'm with you.
Well,
but
So
they're just interpreting, strictly interpreting the land development code. And just because I disagree with them many more times than you do on their interpretations, but I don't know that I've ever won one of them in the 7 years I've been here, or the 5 years I've been here. I don't
feeling it
think I've
too.
ever won one, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay, so in all the scenarios that would be prescribed with their revisions, there is a special use permit required. That's the two hangups I have is, number one, there should be an avenue where we could have personal use mills without having to have a special use. And number two, there should be.
You can now.
There should, and that's my second point. Number two, there should be a way that a citizen of Putnam County who wishes to buy one can call down here and say, I'm about to purchase such and such mill, I would like to put it on my property, am I okay to do that? And there be somewhere that somebody can put their finger on some language that says, yes, you can.
Well, don't we have that, Justin?
No, we do not. We absolutely
Okay,
do
I
not.
thought-
Everything that,
I thought that we were
everything
told
that
here.
Gabriel's talking about is
Okay,
an
okay.
interpretation.
So, I was told this morning that we have the language in the existing land code right now that allows a personal sawmill for on-site wood on your property to cut that wood without bringing in any commercial wood off the property. Is that correct?
The language that we have is for a commercial sawmill. So personal sawmills are not currently regulated by the code.
Okay, so,
So they're allowed by not being disallowed.
well, if they're not allowed by the current code, then that's not what we were told this morning.
I'm not understanding. What do you mean,
Well,
what you
I'm
were
not
told?
understanding, because now you got me confused as
You're
hell,
saying,
actually.
you're saying the same thing. The difference is whether it's in the code or not. You're talking about what permissions you're allowed to do. Yes, what you said's true. You're permitted to do that on-site as long as you're not bringing off-site for a person.
No, that falls.
It's not in the code, but you are allowed to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
As long as you're not bringing wood in from
Cor-
another location.
Correct.
Can we find out where that interpretation comes from? What section of the land development code we are interpreting to say that from? Because as of right now, sawmill only appears, however they're trying to classify that personal use and determining where the wood can come from, I don't know where it's at in the land development code. I have yet to see it. So that's the point, because there's the capability of somebody purchasing a sawmill and wanting to be upfront and above board about it, to call down here and be able to put in their hand a piece of paper that says, because of land development code such and such, I can have this sawmill here on my property without having to fight the uphill. Because once codes assigns a codes case to you and cites a chapter and verse out of the land development code, it's an uphill battle. You have to prove your innocence to get to a level that codes case gets to miss. And that's the frustrating part on this side of the counter. It's nothing against you guys. I mean, I understand you guys are doing a job and protecting the citizens through the land development code and all that. But from the citizen side of that, it's an uphill battle. So the point of what I'm trying to do here is get to where we can say, I can do this, and this is why. Because that's not clear now.
Administrator Suggs, when you're done wrestling with the phone,
We're having to share a microphone down here, and it's called up in the cord. My fault, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you looked like you wanted to make a comment.
Nothing that hasn't already been said here, that, we understand that there's when citizens call in and all, and everybody would love to be able to put their finger on something that says we're able to do this right now. But, your code book is only several thousand pages, in depth. So to be able to do that, I think to be able to have some turnaround time is certainly prudence of the fact that we give out good, accurate data and information when we do that. But by definition alone, I think the county attorney has already said it, by not being in the land development code and the definition of a commercial sawmill is, I think it's the personal use is defined by the fact that it's just not there.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Turner,
So
any other comments?
I'm done for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
So as you're talking, I'm researching cottage industry, and it's a relatively new term. I think maybe there's an opportunity for us to insert something in our land development code that would address cottage industries. I don't think it's fair for us to single out one industry. You know, if my neighbor decided to start building custom-made motorcycles in his backyard, one-off, I think that would meet that definition. If he cranked, you know, once upon a time, I built an engine for a buddy of mine in my backyard and cranked it up, and 3 people came up in my backyard, wanted to hear what was running. So I think we do need to tread lightly. I think there's an opportunity here for us to address this in the code by having that and defining the parameters. And I don't think we're going to nail everything at one time. I don't think we need to. You know, if I know once upon a time there was a lady down in Pomona Park that used to sell wedding cakes out of her house. That's a cottage industry. You know, she's attracting people to come to her property to take a look at her product. She makes it and she delivers it. I don't think this really falls too far out of those parameters at all. I've also looked up sawmills. I don't know how you would define a sawmill. You know, there's ones that have circular saw blades, there's some that have bandsaw blades, some with electric motors, some with big, like you said, 35 and 40 horse, big Vanguard motors on them. So I think I would not be in any way objectionable to having a horsepower requirement if we were going to get into the type of saw. But then the other question that pops in my mind is, they also talk about finishers and planers and all these other things. Are we going to have to address those individually, or does that come with a quote-unquote sawmill package when, and I'm just doing a real brief reading here, but if you're taking a raw piece of lumber and you're running it through a planer, that's going to make a lot of noise. I've got one of those. If you're going to take and run it through an edge trimmer, that's going to make a lot more noise. So I guess we just need to kind of go cautiously. I personally would be in favor of having something like that in our code and not having the restriction of the special use permit. I think that would be practical and prudent, especially given the fact that this is still America and we still are supposed to be able to enjoy our property and whatever we want to do on it. But knowing that we can't impact somebody's lifestyle. You know, I wear hearing aids for a reason. And it's
one of the interesting comments that came in the planning commission meeting was one of the board members there mentioned a possible limitation on number of employees or number of personnel working, which also limit. You know, it takes, you know, a couple of people. I mean, one man can do it. 2 people, it works out. But you know, if you limited the employee count there to 3 or 4 people. The problem you're talking about with planers and edgers and stuff like that kind of goes away because you're not doing all the same functions at one time. You're cutting and then you're planing and then you're edging, whatever you're doing. You know, those functions kind of they don't run simultaneously. They one then the other, and you know. But I get back to the original point. What we're talking about here is not a commercial level mill. What we're talking about under 40 horsepower motors is a personal use hobby mill that's not used on a weekly 40-hour-a-week basis.
I think too, it also speaks to our agrarian nature. I think this bodes well for that. You know, we're not in a county that's like St. John's or Duval County where you don't have the larger pieces of property typically. We're the reciprocal
Absolutely.
of that. So I wouldn't have a problem.
We're more self-sufficient people in Putnam County.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't have a problem getting there.
that's what I'm trying to protect.
Yep.
Mr. Adamsack?
I believe everything we talked about expands it, doesn't contract it, so from what they presented to us. The horsepower thing, you can never get me to get behind it because there's no reason why a farmer with a 110 horsepower tractor can't connect a smaller size mill to it. There's no reason you can't downsize your PTO to do it. I do it, I've done it. There's 2 neighbors of mine that have used my tractor when their tractor wasn't working to run their sawmills. So if you're saying that's 55 horsepower, that's not 40.
Right. Well, the purpose for that delineation was between where it steps into commercial use. When it
Right,
steps over
but we already
40 horsepower,
addressed that where it steps
I
into
don't care how
commercial
much
use,
noise
they
you're
need a
making, you still
special
have
use
the
permit.
ability to be commercial.
Right, and that's what we're doing. We're doing a special use permit for where it's commercial.
Right.
And you don't need one where it's not.
That's the point of what
That
I'm
sounds
trying to
like
get
what you want is already in place.
Show me in the land development code.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Commissioner Harvey?
All right, so let me get this straight, and I'm going to bring this in for Landy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What you want is a piece of paper. You want to walk in this office and go at 119 Sasso Drive, I'm going to have my personal sawmill, am I allowed to have it? Then if codes enforcement come, you can go, I got a piece of paper. See, that just adds a layer of government. And I'm totally against adding more government to that situation. Now, if the codes enforcement guy is out there running ramshod and doing his own thing, then that's a whole different conversation. But for me to have staff, you pay for a clearance letter for staff to give you, that gives you the right.
I don't need a letter.
But that's what you're asking.
No,
You
no,
want us
what
to.
I'm
Please
asking
let
is-
him
But
finish,
here's
let him
what
finish
you
his
asked.
comment, and I'll let you comment.
Mr.
Well, I'm
Morris,
just
here's what you
being
said. You wanted,
mischaracterized.
Sir?
I'm being mischaracterized with the statement.
no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mischaracterize. Okay, I interpret it this way, and you can straighten me out. I have no problem with that. But if we're going to have to delineate in our book what a personal sawmill looks like versus a commercial sawmill, somebody wants to come in here and say, this is where I'm doing it at. You mentioned that earlier, did you not?
Yes, in the
Okay,
land development
so
code.
is that what you want?
What I want is if I call up here and I ask Gabriel, I'll say, Gabriel, I'm about to put a small-scale sawmill on my property, such and such address, ag zoning. Am I okay to do that? And
Yep.
I want him to be able to say, without giving me a letter or anything, Land Development Code, section such and such, line 3 says, yes, you can.
I got
That's
it.
all I'm shooting for.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry if I mischaracterized you, did not mean.
It's okay.
Mr. Turner will,
Okay, I'm gonna try to finish this up. But this has gotten so far out of hand that it's not even in this universe. Number one, I'm not so sure we don't have to do something with the motion of the planning commission today, because we can't just turn it back over to them again, but if we can ask them to look at it. I think we're gonna have to, what did you say, Rich? Okay, so we don't have to take this any further today. We can just leave this pending from now till the end of time.
Not pending, it's just you're requiring them to make further amendment. So,
I'm not asking them to require them. I'm asking them if they would do it or not. This is not gonna be a requirement from this commissioner, because I think they've already heard it once. So I would like them to look at some possible changes. They might tell us, look, we'd like to wait until the land development code's looked at. We're gonna have one of them, I'm hoping, one of these days in the real close future. We're gonna have somebody, and maybe they could look at it during that time. I don't know, but, you know, I know that if I was on the planning commission, it might actually offend me a little bit that I just heard a case, voted denial, but heard the other side over there, didn't accept it either, sent it on to the commission with a recommendation of denial, and I said, well, maybe I'd like for you to take another shot at it, and so I'll just keep sending it back until such time as we agree. I don't know that it wouldn't be just better to do with that. Can I ask one last thing, Mr. Chairman? Are you done, Mr. Morris?
Yes, sir.
Can we hear from the attorney for the planning commission? He's been pacing the halls. I know he's wanting to say something, and he might say he doesn't want to.
No.
He can't hear it, and he
He's
can't
not.
talk.
That is not the planning
he's
board
not.
attorney.
Oh, he's not the
No,
planning
sir.
commission?
that's-
Oh, okay.
That's Mike Perry.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can hear from him if he turns in a card, can't we?
Okay, what I understood.
Public hearing, George.
Maybe I missed something that was staff was gonna work on what suggestions that we made, and then either bring it back to us, for us to say, okay, take it to the planning commission and let them review that to come back with a whole nother recommendation.
Or that they didn't want to change it at all. I mean.
Well, I think some of them in the minutes of their meeting just wanted to wait till the land development code changes.
And that could be.
And that might be what they say. They might say, we just need to wait. You know, they might say, we don't want to change it at all at this time. But if that's the case, I think it's got to start there. I don't think we should just nonchalantly
Oh, no.
overturn the board.
No. I'm thinking they were coming up with some suggestions to make the changes to what we have.
Mr. Chairman, in order to
And
trying to finish this, I move that we send this back to the planning commission.
Okay, we've got a motion to move it back to the planning commission. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a second. All right. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chair, I just don't know if you have any other, we have heard from the applicant, but it's a public hearing today, so we have to still
Oh,
have to have.
I'm sorry. Okay, we want to rescind your motion?
I'll rescind the second.
Do we have to?
I put my
Okay.
motion on hold, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Well, I'll open it for public comment. I know you have at least one. Okay, Mr. Ken Swing. Mr. Swing, if you'll, and you're on the planning commission, if you will state your name and address.
That real quick.
Yeah, and you have 3 minutes.
Ken Swing, I am on the Planning Commission. I listened to the first presenter say that we made a unanimous decision to turn it down. I don't believe we did that. As a matter of fact, I know we didn't do that. So I don't know where that information come from. If you're going to send it back to us, as a member of that commission, I would please ask you to send us, if all they want to do is the small scale home version sawmill, that's what we need to be looking at. I tried very hard to get that distinction made in our planning commission. And that never was, you guys, it didn't come through here that well neither. So that's what we need to look at. That, if that's what his motion is, that's what he wants to do, then that's what we should be looking at. We don't need to be talking about a big sawmill that sells to the public or anything. We're talking about going to Paul's house and, you know, he may cut up some wood and I may get 4 or 5 boards to put some shelving up. I don't consider that a commercial operation. So if it's not a commercial operation, that's what we need to look at, period. Nothing else. The bit, one of the things that we had a problem with, and I think it's how it was presented to us, if Jeb was cutting trees, he's a tree guy here in the county. If he's got some nice big trees, he won't bring them over to us and we can use them. I see nothing wrong with that. But we need to have that, you need to have us look at that very specifically. Not a semi coming in with a load of lumber or trees to make lumber. But that's, as a member, that's what we need to look at. We need some guidance from you guys, from them guys, from him, and hopefully everybody can get close to the same page. And then we probably can make a decision that may be unanimous. But our last decision was not unanimous because I did not vote no.
Okay, I was looking to see what the vote was, so, okay, so when it goes back to the planning commission, y'all can make suggestions, as you were speaking of, and make changes and recommend it back to us, correct?
We can. It'd be nice to have your guidance on what staff wants. They take their guidance from you, they give it to us, and then we, in turn, give you something.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
I would respectfully disagree. I think the guidance should come from the citizens, and staff should take that and present it to the commission. I don't think that the government should ever be telling the citizens how to run their lives.
Well, we
in
need
this
to-
respect especially.
We need to be looking at the one aspect that you want, that we're concerned with.
Right.
We don't need to be sidetracked and, you know, pictures come to show great big sawmills. That's not what we're looking at.
I can't speak to what y'all were shown. It sounds to me like there might have been some misrepresentations, but again, I think this is an opportunity for us to take a look at, you know, writing another chapter that allows for these cottage-style industries and not limit it only to sawmills. If we have other things coming down the road, let's try to include those as well. You know, we do have lots of them that would not fall under farming, and I just think this is going forward with this economy the way it is, and with just the world we live in, I think we have this opportunity, and this is why. And I appreciate your service to the board, by the way. But all you guys are spending your time, coming in here and trying to set parameters to the community you want to live in. This is your community.
Well, I did not come here to speak on this today. I came here for your first one you had down in Georgetown or Willac or wherever it's at. That's why I came.
You'll have your opportunity to speak about that too.
But when this came up, I said, no, I think I'll just wait.
That'll come back to us, so. Okay, Mr. Swain, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment portion. And you had your motion on hold. Do we need to vote again?
I
or-
remove my motion from hold.
Okay, all right, we got a proper,
I'll take
proper
the second
motion.
off hold.
Okay, got a proper motion, a proper second, and all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
We need to get hold buttons.
All right. Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Morris. Next item, it would be Planning and Development Small Scale Land Use Amendment Ordinance 2022-003. And I would just make the disclosure that my youngest son is employed by the law firm that is representing this individual, and it won't have any bearing on my decision. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, Joe Steerley, Planning and Development Services. This is a future land use small-scale map amendment from agricultural to industrial. The property consists of approximately 17.2 acres. However, this amendment would only apply to 8.1 acres. It's to change the agricultural future land use to industrial land use. Currently, it's zoned heavy industrial with an agricultural land use. The property's been operating as a mechanical repair shop for truck transports for over 25 years by New Line Transport. They've ceased operation there within the last 2 years. There's a Land Development Code section 45.813 and 814 stipulates that if the property is left vacant or not used for up to 240 consecutive days, then the property may not be used except in conformance with the regulations of the zoning district and the future land use designation. As mentioned, the southern portion of the property, why it's not being a part of this is because majority of it is wetlands. As you can see here on the aerial, the north portion of the parcel is where the New Line Transport has been operating for the last 25 years, and the southern portion is all wetlands. This does exist within a existing commercial industrial node. As you can see, the properties to the west and northwest are currently zoned light industrial. The future land use of those parcels to the west and northwest are also zoned industrial. I'm sorry, there's a land use amendment or land use map designation of industrial. So currently the AG land use allows for limited industrial uses, but only as they pertain to agricultural uses. So the truck maintenance facility would not be permissible under that land use. However, it would be permissible under the heavy industrial zoning designation. So this application came before the Planning Commission on February 9th, where they voted unanimously to recommend approval to amend it from agricultural to industrial. Staff finds the proposed amendments consistent with the comprehensive plan, and staff recommends approval of this as well. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is here as well to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from commissioners? Commissioner Harvey?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and I'll just make this really brief. In some of these areas, I mean, that's a clear site that probably industrial is probably where it needs to maintain at. Is there any way to avoid it going back to agricultural because of it not being used? I mean, it seems to me it's the right place at the right zoning for the right place. So why do we need to go back and revert back to agricultural when we all kind of feel it's just the right fit? You know what I'm saying?
The proposal is to amend it from agricultural to industrial.
Right. But it was industrial, right? And it reverted back because he didn't use it, right?
I did some historical research. I didn't see that.
Did I
I heard that as
misunderstand
well.
That's what I thought it did.
That's what I thought too. I could have misunderstood. I thought I read it that way.
Used to have a trucking company on it.
Yeah, right.
The zoning has been industrial, but the future land use has been agricultural. We didn't find where the future land use was ever industrial. So it's been a non-conforming use for a long time. When they ceased use for over 240 days, they lost the use.
Ever since they made the land code count. I mean,
What's that?
back when the comprehensive plan was written, we were assured, because I was on the planning commission, that the future land use map would never be the instrument that would trump zoning in this county. Because when we drew that map, I literally was involved in it. We drew it with a pencil and a piece of paper without any regard to how accurate it was, only that it was kind of accurate. But then a commission a few years ago, this isn't statute unless it's changed, a commission a few years ago decided that they didn't get the proper decision they wanted on a land use that somebody was allowed to use by zoning, but wasn't in the future land use map, so they changed that in our land development code or our comprehensive plan, because it wasn't like that 25 years ago around here. So, you know, so now we've just hit another property that somebody has long time industrial piece of property, and we just made these people spend $750
Yeah.
and go through the whole process and everything to do what it's historically been done with for as long as I can remember. And I used to rent the pasture next door when I was a child. So, well, a lot younger, not exactly a child. So, my point being is we just made them go through this whole process to be able to use that piece of property when they had industrial zoning, they had historical industrial, and on top of that, we've made them go through this process in order to get the land use changed.
Count to three.
Yes, it's a non-conforming use.
Well, then we need to change this somehow, guys. This is completely crazy. We got historical use, we got zoning, and now
That was my question. How do we
well,
avoid
that's
this?
what I thought it was, Commissioner Harvey. But it's still, am I the only commissioner here that sees the ridiculousness of this?
That's why I brought it up.
Right. Okay. Can we work on how's the I don't want to go
We
into
have
detail,
addressed
how's the
that
process
point,
to change that?
So the
There's-
process to change that is when we do the EAR amendments every 10 years, we should take a look at the inconsistent and non-conforming uses and try to see if we can clean that up.
Exactly. Because the comprehensive plan always trumps the zoning. So if the comprehensive plan has a land use that doesn't allow for industrial land uses, we could never allow it.
I got it.
So,
Okay. All right, any other questions for staff?
Mr. Chair, just at some point, if you don't mind, can I read the title of the ordinance?
Okay.
So an ordinance amending the future land use element of the comprehensive plan by amending the future land use map to change the designation on approximately 8.1 acres of land from agricultural to industrial, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, and setting forth an effective date for case number SM 21-02.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Okay, is the applicant here or the representative for the applicant? You'd like to make comments?
do you have a presentation? Okay.
We can come up with one. Good morning, Commission. Appreciate Chairman for giving me the opportunity to speak. I didn't mean to start a line of questioning, but did Commissioner Turner and Commissioner Harvey, just so you know, those are the exact same questions that my client had when we started this process.
I'll bet.
And just so you know, it's not 750, it's 1,200.
Ah,
Plus the other cost involved. So
A future land use map now is $1,200?
No, applying.
it's application to do this for my client.
Our cost to, we charge them to apply.
Not to mention my time and the surveying, because we had to survey off all the wetlands and the drylands and get those separated. So it is a concern to
I don't
folks
know
out
if
there.
it helps you or not, Mr. Young, but this is exactly the kind of thing that makes me furious with government.
My client was a little furious as well. But I will say that Mr. Quintus and members of the staff, once we were able to overcome that obstacle, did work very well. They were very cooperative, very helpful. The process has gone very smoothly to get here, so we appreciate that very much. Mr. Siafi as well, they spent several well, I won't say hours, but they had several meetings with me on behalf of my client to get the process ironed out as quickly as we could and to get through it with some of the requirements. So you've hit all the nails on the head. Bottom line is you've got a property that for over 20 years has been utilized in this manner. Really the only change here is that we have segregated off the wetlands from this process. So you're only talking about 8 acres. Unfortunately, you had a combination of Palachua Properties LLC owns the property. It's named Palachua because part of the business is in Chattanooga and part of the business is in Palaca, so we combined the two names. The elderly gentleman that owned that business passed away, and it was during COVID. His son, who was trying to get things together, could not get down here due to travel restrictions. New Line Transportation, which has utilized the facility for quite some time, decided to move some of their operations farther north. I think due to COVID and other reasons, they were having to consolidate. So because of all those factors at one time, we wound up with exceeding the 240-day requirement. Otherwise, the property, all the inquiries on the property have been to utilize it for the same process, but my client cannot move forward with a new lease or sale of the property until this is approved. So that's why we're here. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
So am I correct in understanding that your client started this process, but the 240-something days just couldn't happen because of COVID and things in that nature? Is that what I'm hearing?
My understanding from speaking to my client is that it was his father that owned this particular LLC. He passed away during the early days of COVID, and due to the fact that there were travel restrictions and other reasons and handling the estate, his son was not able to get down and manage this particular property due to the fact that New Line Transportation during this same period of time ended their lease and moved their operations elsewhere. So it was kind of like a perfect storm combination. And so somewhere in that process, between trying to consolidate the companies and the estate, COVID, travel restrictions, and the tenant moving, we wound up exceeding the 240 days.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, when you're ready, I'm ready to make a motion.
He's got to ask for public
Yeah, I got to do.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Young. Okay. Anybody wishing to make public comment for or against this? Okay, seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve staff recommendations on to amend the future land use map from agricultural to industrial.
Second.
A proper motion by Commissioner Harvey and a proper second by Commissioner Adamsack. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It passes. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move down. Julianne, you wanna give us the update, or guys, as long as this meeting's taken, you wanna waive it?
I think we
Tell her
can
to
read.
email me a copy, that'd be fine.
That'd be good for you, Julianne? Okay. All right, we'll move down to the consent agenda item. I'll open up for public comment on agenda items. The portion of this agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation on matters which has received no prior information. So we have anybody that want to make public comment on agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to the consent agenda. And any commissioners wishing to pull, I'll start with Commissioner Rawls.
I have none today.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey.
I have item E.
Okay. Commissioner Turney.
I have none.
Commissioner Adamsack.
Item H.
Item H, and I also would like to ask a few questions about item E.
Mr.
Can we get a
Chairman?
motion for the rest of the?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pass item A, B, C, D, F, G, I, and J.
I'll
Okay.
second.
We got a proper motion to set that part of the agenda, or the consent agenda, by Commissioner Harvey, and a second by Commissioner Turner. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you,
item
Mr.
E.
Chairman. I'm not going to go back and rehash all what should have, could have, would have in this situation, but I do, I appreciate the opportunity this company provides to our low-income housing market that is desperately needed. I do feel like we need to enter into a new agreement with them. I just don't like the terms. And was wondering if we could not bring it to a workshop, or is this time sensitive that we need to move this item forward today? If it is, I've got recommendation on what the terms might be, but staff, is this time sensitive that we couldn't?
Well, could the other commissioners speak that have their lights on first?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then we'll go to Commissioner Turner and then Commissioner Rawls.
I had a long discussion about this with Tabitha the other day, and I completely agree with you 100% that this whole situation is not good. But it's also a situation that if we bowed up at them and just said, we're gonna go in there, and we're gonna repossess the place because they didn't pay off on their terms, we have second mortgage. We don't have the millions of dollars that it takes to go put in, and I don't wanna be in an apartment business. Not only that, most of the time, these companies get these things as grants. I don't understand why they didn't just get a grant back then 20 years ago and it would be done already over with. So, you know, I appreciate this company deciding and Rich negotiating a thing that would allowed them to come to the table and say, well, we want to pay this back with you. I mean, we'll work with you on this deal instead of us having to bow up with them or them with us or what have you. So, you know, I appreciate it, Rich, and I don't know of a better situation. You know, we can tinker with the terms or we can do this or that, but really, 99% of, well, every other grant that I know of wasn't a loan. Every one that I knew of was just given to them. So at least they're trying to rectify that, you know, with whatever terms they feel like they can meet. So, you know, I think we need to move this thing forward and quit trying to micromanage it.
Okay,
That's just my opinion.
all right. Do you have any more comment?
No, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
I agree with Commissioner Turner. There's a sale that's pending. You know, knowing what I know about financing and especially with the multifamily deal, this I would imagine is time sensitive. But you know, we're not doing this ourselves. We're just paying for the sins of others. I do agree. I think that we should take a look at being able to waive the grants or whatever you want to call it in the future to stimulate necessary housing. Right now, I believe our necessary housing need is, you know, more for your 120% AMI, 80 to 120%. But in this case, it's an absolute necessity. It's here, and you've got a new buyer at the tables, and they're paying back. They're not asking for forgiveness. It's just, you know, long term.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
I'm good, thank you.
You good?
I'll move
We'll discuss the
approval.
turn.
A second.
Okay, got a proper motion to move item E forward and a proper second. I just wanted to comment, and I appreciate that's why we pull these things, so you hear other people's opinions. And Rich, thank you for negotiating this, because we could be getting this thing just dumped back on us, and we don't want that. My concern was, and I mentioned this at the pre-agenda meeting yesterday, was the age of these buildings at the end of this loan. But in good faith, who monitors that they would make those payments? Sir? Guardian, okay. Okay, that's all I have. All in favor, okay, saying aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Did you say,
No, I said aye.
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, it passes. Item H, Commissioner Adamsack?
I just pulled for consistency's sake. I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
You won't support a free grant?
Again, it's
Not
the
until it
whole,
pays for
it's
itself.
it's the whole putting, we're up to $20-some million in one geography in the county. And actually, I think this brings it to like 24. We are not making any attempt to do any of this in any other areas where there are waterways that can be protected. And again, I'm not for taxpayer money being specific to one site-specific, one geography.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I
Okay.
move approval.
Second.
Got a proper motion to move item H, approve item H by Commissioner Turner, proper second by Commissioner Harvey. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, 4-1. Okay, that completes the consent agenda. We'll move down to clerk of courts.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you for giving me a minute. Starting next week, March 28th, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m., our Operation Greenlight will be going on. So that starts next week and it goes for 2 weeks. So all next week, Monday through Friday, and the following week, April 4th through the 8th. We're actually open Saturday, April 2nd from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. as well. And so this is for anybody that has suspended driver's license due to unpaid court fines, fees, other costs. They can come down and see us. Also, thank you, Commissioner Harvey, for going over to Public Works and finding a retired traffic light for us and got it all wired up, so it's hanging over at our fair booth at the fair right now. So thank you for that. It's the green light is on. It's working pretty good. We saw that the other day. So other than that, also just wanted to thank the commission and county administration for letting us use the old boardroom down at our facilities as kind of a backup jury room. Chairman and county administration came down yesterday and took a look at that. So I just want to thank y'all for letting us use that room to potentially put jurors in if needed. So that's all I have today. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move down to appointments, and I'd like to start. I have a recommendation. It's an at-large appointment to the Animal Services Advisory Committee. It's Ms. Jenny Oakwood. Her term will expire next month. She's actually the chairperson. So I'd like to make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion
Nominate
that we
her. Okay.
appoint Virginia Oakwood to the at-large Animal Service Advisory Committee.
I don't think it requires a second
Okay.
nomination.
Okay, all right. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, any other appointments, Commissioner Adamsack?
District 5, Better Place Plan Oversight Committee, I would like to appoint Laura Parsons, who has the application sent in and approved.
Okay. All right, we don't need any type of motion for that anymore.
That is all I have today.
Okay, Commissioner Turner?
I have none today.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
I have one on Parks Recreation Board. I'll be appointing Jasmine Rivera. She has filled out her application. Much thanks to Mary Lynn Panettiere for all her service.
And you spoke to her,
I have.
correct? Okay. Okay, all right. Commissioner Rawls?
I'll reappoint Joel Danzer to the Fishing Fund Committee. That's for District 2.
Okay. All right, any others? That's it? That's all?
That's all I have.
Isn't he on the,
He's on the Planning Commission.
yeah, can he serve on the planning commission and the fishing fund?
I don't know what the fishing fund does. Is it
We'll have to look at it, Mr.
Well, I have no issue with him whatsoever. I'm just trying to remain consistent across the board on all the appointments.
I just need to look at what the responsibilities are.
Okay.
Okay. All right, that concludes the appointments. Okay, we'll move down to public comments on miscellaneous items. Again, this portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It's not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation on matters on which the board has received no prior information. Anybody wishing to make public comment on miscellaneous items? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that portion, and we'll move down to County Administrator. Administrator Suggs?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things. First of all, you know that one of the items on the consent agenda today was the reconciliation of your signature for the state of emergency that we currently are under due to the tornado that touched down in South Putnam. We have Mr. Stephen Turnipseed, who sat through the meeting today. So whether or not we bring him up to give a public comment or not, I think it's germane at this point. You and I had this conversation yesterday, and the fact that we had staff that actually went knocked door to door in that area to make sure that they had representation, that we could give them any assistance whatsoever possible to recoup any potential losses. And so I just want to ways, at least in the audience, let him know how much you, I, and this board and this community appreciate the work of the emergency services this past week with him and Danny.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna go, Stephanie, if you want to just come on up, and if you can just give us a brief overview of what y'all did down there, because it was in South Putnam, and it did, you know, some damage, and I was just
All that equipment down there, you picked it right up, though, didn't you?
working on it. And
Never ends, does it?
so anyway, thank you for sitting through the meeting, but I've had a lot of good positive comments on what your staff did out in the field, so if you could just comment on it just for a few minutes of what happened, what took place, and what y'all did.
Yes, sir. So, as everybody knows, March 12th, around 9 a.m., we had a EF1 tornado, 93-mile-an-hour winds coming through South Putnam from the Lake George Conservation Area all the way across Clifton Road up to Crescent Lake. Immediately after fire rescue, they arrived on scene. Luckily, we had no injuries. No one was hurt. Right after, Director Grimes came down. I was on my way. Danielle was on her way. And we, like I said, we went door to door, took pictures, asked if anyone needed anything. All last week, I've been calling people. I even went back down, found another person who was affected, but he didn't want any help. So just as a public notice to everybody, if there is anyone affected, please get in touch. We have Red Cross, Volunteer Florida, a ton of state resources we can help bring in. As it stands, it does not look like there's going to be any federal disaster declaration, but we are working with the Small Business Administration, and with Marion County, we might be able to piggyback off of them to get some help. So if you have any questions for me?
I would say thank you, because I've heard that you've gone down a number of times with various people, and you've been in contact with them about agencies that may be able to assist them. It doesn't look good about any of them, but JR and your staff he says not overlooking any low-hanging fruit, I guess is what he called it. So, but I just want to commend y'all for what you did.
Thanks, sir.
It could have been a lot worse. There were no fatalities, but the owner of the potato farm, about an hour before that hit, he and his son were turkey hunting on the property, and the weather looked bad, and so he decided to go back to his house, and that's when it hit his farm. He had substantial damage too. He did so. Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, we move down to county minister. Okay.
I have just one more announcement, Mr. Chairman, and that is the notification, of course, that you and I are aware of, that I'll be out of the office this afternoon, and will return next Tuesday. And so my wife and I will be out of town, and wish everyone a good week and a good weekend. And thanks, staff, for all they've done this week, and we will see you folks next Tuesday.
Okay, have a safe trip, and Julie, we'll get some stuff done this afternoon, won't we? Okay, commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Adamsack.
I'll withhold till the afternoon meeting.
Okay, I skipped you, Rich, so,
I didn't have anything.
okay. All right, Commissioner Turner.
Only thing I want to bring up is we're going to have to change our purchasing ordinance to be able to hire somebody to do our land development code. Unless something's changed from a week and a half ago, we're having difficulties in finding somebody to do it. Guys, we spent $150,000 on redoing our comp plan, and now we've got money budgeted to start the land development code. Where we at, Julie?
So we have, we issued the original solicitation, and it did not elicit qualified responses or a number of qualified responses, so we pulled it down. We have reached out to a number of companies and gotten some feedback on why they weren't interested at that time or didn't participate. We have also worked with Mr. Quintes, who has a forum that we can try to reach. He has a website or a consortia that has a more dedicated source of those individuals. Our intentions is to try one more round utilizing that, and then as we discussed prior, the alternative would be not necessarily to change the procurement code, but to ask the board if they're interested in waiving the procurement code to allow for direct negotiations with any number of entities that we can find that may be willing to talk to us about potentially doing it. And so what that would look like would simply be, instead of having some sort of sealed solicitation, we would reach out to parties that we could get interested and bring them to the table and start negotiating with those parties as to what that would look like. But
I'm good with that, Julianne. We've talked about this. It's just been a week and a half with you
Yep.
being gone and me being ill and what have you. So, I want this to move forward because next thing you know, it'll be 3 years from now and we still won't be done. So it's gonna take a little time to do this. We took the first round at it. We weren't successful. And so sooner rather than later, I would like to, if you wanna try a second round, I'm on board. That's fine, but then I wanna come to the board, and if we are not successful in the next round, I want to be able to negotiate directly with one or two or three, kinda like an RFP type process or whatever, and just find out how much they're gonna cost and what services we're gonna get for that amount of money, and bring the recommendation to the board, and let's get it moving. I mean, I've been trying to do this for 5 years. It's taken 5 years to get to this point. I'd like to try to move it forward.
so we can reissue this solicitation this week, and we're gonna know within 3 weeks of that issuance if we have a qualified pool of firms or entities that are interested. And then at that point, the board can make a decision.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Rawls?
I've got a question
Okay.
along those lines. Would be to Gabriel, I guess. Are we going to have any concurrency issues with the current comp plan that you can see that may need to be addressed while we're addressing the land development code? Will there be any?
So the land development code currently has, and by concurrency, you mean like our concurrency management system?
Yeah.
We have a very good article in the land development code that regulates and sets up a concurrency management system currently. So I don't think we'd have any issue currently.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Turner, any other comments?
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with moving forward with that? Send it back out? Okay. All right, Commissioner Rawls, your commissioner comments?
I don't know who this would be addressed to. I've talked to Jay. I've talked to Daniel Carl at Waste Pro. There's an issue, and it's come up several times, where you got somebody that throws a bunch of yard debris and trash on the road that can't be picked up under the contract for Waste Pro unless they're being paid extra. And typically, they would go to the homeowner to be paid that extra amount of money. In this case, a gentleman reached out to me. I got hold of Jay got hold of Daniel. Daniel goes there and puts a card on top of the pile of debris, and it rained that day, unfortunately, and kind of wiped out the message. But when I talked to Daniel, Daniel says, we can't go and pick it up because it's too large. And I understand that, but the anxiety that the residents in that area have to deal with is there's a pile of trash sitting on the side of the road.
But it is on our right of way.
Apparently,
So
yeah.
That's
yeah.
a big deal. It's got to be on our right, we fight this every day. It's got to be on our right of way, because by statute, we can't pick up trash off the private land.
To me, it looks like it is. The issue is that they have large diameter and long logs where they've cut down trees. So I wonder if we can't have a conversation in the near future about trying to come up with a way to resolve this where we can, and I hate to do this, but maybe give permission to Waste Pro to go pick that up, and then we, in turn, charge the landowner, whoever caused the problem. Give them an opportunity to resolve it, and in a very short period of time, if they can't get it done, then get it resolved so the people living around there don't have to suffer for it.
Well, we've got the facilities to pick it up. We got a grapple truck.
Yep.
But if we go pick up off private land, where do you want to stop?
Right. Well, when I'm
That's the problem
yeah.
is that I run into
the
this
na-
quite
this is-
regularly in my district over there over there by the old Hardee's, then the Italian Grill back in that area. There's many roads in there that have been historically dumping areas. and the residents just light me up all the
Yeah.
time. And the reason why is because they want us to go pick it up, but the stuff is on private property. We can't pick it up.
In this case, it's on the roadside.
Well, we
I
can,
know what you're talking
we
about,
can
yeah.
usually pick it up on the road.
Yeah, Jay's been able to pick it up for me. We actually had a road, and the lady called me, said, you need to send somebody down to see if you can get some stuff off of Furniture Road. That's what she called it, and Jay was able to pick that up.
Yeah.
But, you know, he had to schedule it with him, and then it was on county right away.
And some of the years you're talking about, Terry, I went to one, the mayor called me up one day and asked me if I could meet with him, and there was a road they thought was in the city, was actually in the county. And a gentleman took his own personal tractor, the front end loader, and loaded up all the debris. And what we ended up finding was there was actually a paved street that had been littered so much, there was an enormous amount of garbage that completely lined the road. You couldn't even see the road. So I think it's just something we need to start thinking about. You know, we're starting to get our feet underneath us. We're starting to get some folks moving in the community, doing some development. And this would go a long way, but the people that live here currently don't, you know, have to have some relief as well. The fair is going on, went there last night. It looks like it's very well attended so far. So don't forget to go to the fair, it's a lot of fun. And then we're meeting with the city of Plaque on the 7th at 5 p.m. Here next month still. Looking forward to that. Otherwise, that's all I got.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
I'm good, thank you. I'll leave my comments to the afternoon session.
Okay, my comments is to just tag along what Commissioner Rawls says. We are going to meet with the city of Plaquemine scheduled for Thursday, April 7th here at 5 p.m. Your agenda items need to be back to Laura by the 28th, is that correct? So we can have the agenda out by the 31st, so to give us a week to look at it. As of right now, there are how many agenda items? One right now, and that's Commissioner Adams' Act with the St. John's Avenue, so.
You're in the lead.
So hopefully I'll reach out to Mayor Hill and see if we can get some agenda items, because I don't want to go in just as just an open meeting. I want to have some items that we are going to talk about. Laura?
It's got, it's
Okay.
got to be a structured meeting. It's got to be.
I didn't hear that.
Their deadline is the 25th, and Ms. Sunny at the city said that she would get Laura their items.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, I spoke with the city manager yesterday. Mr. Holmes called my office, and this is one of the conversations. So both of us are aware we're trying to get agenda items together in a timely manner so we can get an agenda. So both commissions will understand what the items on the agenda would be before the agenda is posted.
Okay. All right, thank you. Second, just announcement, the Crescent City Yacht Club has brought back the hydroplane races in Crescent City. They'll be the 26th and 27th this weekend. And they've done a really good job with this. They're going to have a drivers and owners dinner with different sponsors there, and that's on a Friday evening, and then they'll race on Saturday and Sunday. So I want to commend the Yacht Club for putting that on. And I'm a member of the Crescent City Rotary Club, third generation, and we will not have the Catfish Festival this year. I think that's been advertised, but on Saturday, April 2nd, the day that we usually have the festival, the Rotary Club will be selling fish and chicken dinners in the park, Eva Lyons Park, from 10 to 3. So just to try to raise a little bit of money, we're just calling it Dollars for Scholars this year, not the Catfish Festival. So maybe the Catfish Festival will come back in a few years, but just not sure. So that's all. That's all the comments I've got. We got a 2 o'clock transportation meeting. Any further business to come before this board? Okay, we stand adjourned.